What's up, chat? Welcome back to the stream, everybody. Finally, at long last, we're back to our regularly scheduled shows, everyone. We're back to what is likely to be the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday stream schedule, which we've been breaking for the last, 3 weeks because we've had daily content drops from Warhammer community. But now, things are settling out. 11th edition is here, fully released, in full swing, and we get to talk about it. Thanks, everyone, for coming and joining me, and welcome in, everyone. I'm back. I was live all weekend at the Summer Ruin GT. Honestly, level with you, one of the most fun times I've had commentating Warhammer 40k in a really long time, because we basically got to just explore some absolutely fucking ludicrous rules interactions using the new, all the new mechanics. And we basically sat down with David, the head judge, for a while there, kind of worked through some of the new rules and mechanics, watched people play out with them on stream live and figure out exactly how they were working. Got to answer lots of questions. It was a great time. And we had some absolutely crazy good games on stream, which was sick. So highly recommend if you haven't watched the games. Day 2, rounds 2 and 3 were nuts. Absolutely ludicrous. Some of the best games that we've streamed, that's where the player skill level is very, very similar. And I think the army power level is very similar. Once we got to the upper edge, cutting edge of kind of competitive stuff, you started to see some of the cracks form, I guess, in faction to faction balance. But in the periods where armies are of similar balance, they are crazy. The games are insane, which is absolutely sick. Deathwatch, thank you for the membership. Appreciate that. If you are a member, you'll get access to all of the recorded games as well. I have the first 3 online. I have to edit down the last 2 today. Those will be posted most likely later today. And that's where it is. We're going to get Summer Ruin lists. Are they public? Yeah, so they're in. Can show you the. I got my app open over here. Hopefully, I guess this is. We'll push this over a little bit so we can see. I got my app ready to go so we can talk about stuff. It's this event. I will straight up just post it in the chat. Here we go. There you go, chat. You might have to be a Best Case Pairings member to see lists, but in any case, we're going to talk about X and 1s today. We're going to be back to our sort of regularly scheduled broadcast. We're going to talk about X1 results from events, so that will be pretty sweet. Yeah. Let's go. I'm seeing where you can take rhinos or transports without troops. Know anything about that? I believe that there is a rule that specifies the dedicated transports have to begin embarked in the battle formation step, but I actually don't know that for sure. It might be that they got rid of the dedicated transport rule. I don't know necessarily if that's the case. Maybe not. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it right now, and I will take a peek. If that ends up not being the case. I guess it's not in the battle formations rule, so it might be gone. I don't know. We'll see. People not doing actions with the rhinos. Well, rhinos were always good for actions. It was just that they were also good for obviously transporting stuff. If you're able to take them more easily, it does make the game a little bit cleaner. I do remember that I thought that there was a requirement in some points to embark things, but I might have been wrong about that. It doesn't really matter so much. I don't know if massively changes list construction. One thing to keep in mind about non-infantry action units, this is something that we picked up on as we were watching the games. Non-infantry utility units are kind of mid, because they don't hide on things. So you could be like, I have a rhino. It's a cheap unit that's kind of hard to kill. Except that you can't tow into terrain and block and get line of sight block to you. So you have to occupy very, very valuable space in your deployment zone. There's a limited amount of of line of sight blocked areas in deployment zones nowadays. So you have to really judiciously decide whether or not it's worth keeping a vehicle or something there in a position where they can't be hidden using the hidden mechanic. So if you're burning points and you're burning the space on units like that, then, you have to consider. Otherwise, you just get just peeked by a railgun across the table and die. So, we'll see. We'll see. That might also be an oversight. There are some oversights in the rules. I'm constructing as we go a ruling document for nominally for my own events, but also I guess it will also serve as kind of a I guess a list of rules that do need clarification. There's some pretty bad stuff in here. One thing we realized over the course of the weekend, somebody had a great question, which was, what happens to my attacks if my attacks change in the middle of my attack sequence? So you use the identical attack rule to determine which pools an attack goes into. So if I have a bunch of attacks and some of them are AP1 and some of them are AP2, the AP1 ones would go into one attack group and the AP2 ones would go into another attack group, and they would each be resolved separately with a separate attack sequence. However, if you have a rule that says, for example, on a critical wound, you gain +1 AP, what happens to those attacks? The answer is that it's not covered in the rules at all, as far as we can tell, which in most cases is kind of whatever. Some of those attacks are going to be AP1, some of those are going to be AP2. The implication is that the defender gets to choose the order in which they save. Fine, fair enough. It would all be against one allocation order, but the defender would get to pick the order. That's fair. Except, what if your attacks give you critical precision? The game, destabilizes. I think, rules as written, if an attack inside a group gains precision halfway through the attack sequence, all the attacks effectively have precision because the character moves to the first allocation group and then eats every failed save, which almost certainly is not how it's supposed to work. So there's some stuff in there like that. Command points are just not covered. There's no restriction on gaining command points beyond the core command point. However, it seems pretty clear to me that that's an oversight, that it's referenced in some cases, some of the event documents. That's another one that's a big one. So there's a lot of things that they forgot to put into the rules. It's not a perfect document, to be fair. It is better, in my opinion, than we've ever seen in any edition transition. Now, transitionary periods between editions are a fucking nightmare. At the best of times, we are not going to, have a perfectly smooth ride. And if this is your first time, just get ready for the roller coaster. We're going to white knuckle through this game state for another 6 months or so. But, once we get through that period, the game will smooth out. In previous editions, it's been kind of a nightmare. Last edition, we immediately you could see Eldar, Space Marines, GCR calls. These factions are literally 2 to 3 times more powerful than other factions. You can have a single Eldar unit to defeat entire armies sometimes, which is wild. It doesn't feel like there's that level of imbalance. Some stuff is a little bit better. 9th edition, we had army rules that were getting rewritten on the fly. They had to rewrite core mechanics several times in a row before they worked correctly. The most famous one I remember was that at start of 9th edition, they rewrote a bunch of army abilities without thinking about them, and one of them gave objective secured, which meant that you always took objectives from people, even if they had more models than you, in that edition, to the entire Space Wolf army. If you brought Space Wolves, every single unit in your model in your army had that, including rhinos and land speeders and stuff. We don't have any problems like that. It's so far in 11th edition, which has been great. That said, there is going to be probably 4 or 5 levels of errata that need to go through before the game looks really, really good. Yeah, this document's getting long. It's getting long. I've got some good ones in here though. I think I'm feeling very confident about my FAQ document. Basically, I've been taking 45 minutes to an hour or so a day, and I've just been trolling through all the FAQ threads that a lot of other communities have, and I've been compiling both the sort of common wisdom that a lot of people have, as well as those questions, and implementing those into this FAQ document. I'll drop a link to that. It is a work in progress currently, and there's some stuff that I'm going to be changing in it sort of very, very shortly here. So don't take what I say in that document as gospel right now, but I'll put it in the chat if anybody wants to reference that. So anyway, That's what I have to talk about. Someone went to your local RTT with 6 Rhinos, 6 Impulsors, and 6 Razorbacks with a Tech Marine. That sounds like a terrible list. That sounds sick as hell, but absolutely non-functional. Incredible. Incredible. There's a weird interaction with tanks blocking line of sight. Is there? Interesting. I would love to hear about that. That would be cool if that was the case. I'd love it for vehicles to just have line of sight. Anyway, folks, let's talk about some freaking lists, chat. I think what I'd like to do is start with some of the funkier ones and go on from there. A lot of these I haven't I haven't had the time to sort of like go through beforehand. So some of these we're going to have to, we'll just sort of muddle through. Let me make sure that my scene doesn't look messed up. Here we go. Now there's pretty straightforward ones, to be clear. Stuff like Emperor's Children, for example, feels like they do have a lot of additional build variety that's available to them. However, I don't know necessarily if people are taking advantage of it. So, for example, I think I'm going to put a zoom in on this guy. Does that look a little bit better, chat? There we go. We're doing it live. This is from Thess Tabletop over in Greece. And we saw 4-in-1 Emperor's Children. I believe the event that I live streamed also had Coterie of the Conceited Emperor's Children doing pretty well as well. Now, Emperor's Children do have some cool 1-point attachments they can take. It doesn't seem like they're performing that well right now, but we might just not have figured out like the composition for them. And people are just transposing what are probably pretty good compositions from 10th edition into 11th edition. There's a lot of really big benefits that they get. Things like Winged Demon Princes have a bunch of like mechanical bonuses. They can now take to the skies to go through terrain features, which is awesome. They don't care so much about the 2-inch movement penalty because they have a base high movement characteristic, and also they can advance and charge. So that's sweet. There's also an interesting interaction as well, where due to the sequencing rules, if you have a rule that automatically applies, you always apply it first, which means the Demon Prince's mortal wound ability always happens after you complete a charge.
31 donated $10 through Super Chat. Question on support tags versus dual leadership classes on datasheets. For example, Canonus and Hospitaller should dual attach, but their dual attach wording on the datasheet only allows
their dual attach wording on the datasheet only allows both in Battle Sister squads. Interesting. I would assume that there's also like this might be difficult to do in the stupid app here. I'm not okay. App, thank you. Because I actually don't know where the ability is that you can dual attach on their datasheet. I'm not sure the app even has it. So I don't know if I can reference that because this app is imperfect. But I think that the Battle Sister Squad datasheet ability would override. If you have an ability, if you have a restrictive ability on a datasheet, it would override any core abilities. That might be an issue. That might be a mistake, and it might be something that gets changed in the future. But if it says that you can only attach X if you do not have Y attached, I imagine that would override. It is in characters. Oh, okay. So like, what's a good example? Like a Dogmata or a Hospitaller? Not these ones, I guess. No. A Magifier? Nope. Get fucked. Or FAQs, melee weapons. There's no FAQs about it, right? This is probably the FAQ about how they gain Miracle Dice and reroll. Yeah. So the problem here, chat, is that a lot of dual attachment effects have been... So the app is, I would say, an imperfect... This is probably using the app for reference. I guess, like... Can we find on 39K, actually? Would be like... Hospitaller? So like 39k, I think, has the original wording. If we go over here. So like here's the Hospitaler's wording. You can attach to a battle sister squad even if one canoness, Valentine's, Unit Rita, or Ace Thurga has already been attached. If you do that bodyguard, if that bodyguard is destroyed, it becomes separate. Canoness and Hospitaler. No, so this isn't a restriction. This is like a bonus, right? So if the Hospitaler now has a support keyword, which I'm going to look up on the Militarum field manual, because so the app is a ton of problems with leaders right now. It tends to forget previous like leadership dual attach rules or add extra leader keywords to things. How do I get to the Militarum? Actually, I have no idea. Can I Google it? Hold on one second. It tends to like forget what leader abilities that things have, despite them being listed differently in the Militarum field manual. Here we go. It's a link. So if we look at the Militarum and we look at, if I have a question about what like leader abilities a model has, I would always refer to Militarum over the app. And if there's like a missing ability, I would refer back to the codex. Until such time as the app gets updated to not just like randomly assign whatever it feels like to models. That I think that's how I would approach it. Because currently things are like really fucked when it comes to leading units. The one that we hit the other day was like ethereals, where it was like ethereals gained support keywords, so they had to be attached to things, except they didn't have support keyword in the Militarum field manual, which is like dramatically changes how they work. Hospitaler has support. So it seems to me like, assuming that this ability still exists, which I believe that it's supposed to, I guess you don't need this one anymore, but even if this does still apply, it doesn't seem to be a restriction because it's an additive ability. It allows you to attach to a unit that has a canoness attached, which you can just do using the support keyword anyway, so you don't really even need this rider. They probably got rid of this specifically because I don't think it does anything. So to answer the question about specifically Canoness and Hospitaler, I don't believe that their dual attachment ability prevents anything from working. And I actually don't even think that this dual attachment ability probably, persists at all. Yeah. The issue isn't that she can't join Synchrosense. The issue is that she can't join with a Canoness. So in that case, the leader and support ability the leader and support rules would override, right? This was required last edition because it restricted where she could dual attach, but now she can just dual attach anywhere per the core rules, because of the support effect. So yeah, you could definitely do a double attach. You can for sure double attach. If it said this model can only be attached to a unit that already has a leader attached, if it is a battle sister squad, I would agree with you. But this is this is like permissive. It lets you join a battle sister squad that has a unit attached to it. It doesn't restrict joining other units that have a character attached to it. So even I'm not 100% sure that this is still meant to be on the datasheet. Even if it is, it doesn't do anything. So I think we're good. So I don't think we ignore all of these because some of them are permissive. Some of them are permissive in excess of the normal leader and support abilities. Like Death Guard have a bunch of them, I think, that are like not in the app but should be on their data sheets that like dramatically change how they work. And those I think would still apply. But this one in specific is not. This is nothing. This is a big nothing. Do I think there's at least one other update to? Yeah, so according to what I've read, we will be getting an update in July that will, apparently, according to people in the know, I don't know how much I necessarily believe them verbatim, but what I've read is that there is another addendum document that we still haven't seen, which has things like how healing leaders work and stuff like that, the questions that we've had since the beginning, that apparently is slated for release in July. It's just like super fucked in my opinion, but it is what it is. As soon as you write that shit, you got to put it in the rules. But yeah, there you go. So I think we are expecting another update for sure. Going back to our super fun times Emperor's Children over here though. We'll go back to where we were at. Oh, that's G0 cults. That's a different faction. Did I just go through them? I did. The nice thing about this faction is that I think Emperor's Children, they are still relatively expensive. In some cases, some of their stuff got very expensive. I don't know if we're taking Defilers here. We are. But obviously, like, Defilers pushing to 300 plus points is a lot. You did get a couple of points breaks, but I think you end up sort of, making up the difference there by paying more for your Defilers. However, the core mechanics of the game are very conducive to Emperor's Children. The threat ranges that EC operate at is very good for the way that missions work nowadays. Essentially, if you can threat like 13 to 18 inches or so, you're in a really good spot. So the stuff that's like on board move 6 and a charge is not great, but the stuff that's like move 6, move 7, advance and charge, disembark, move 7, advance, you're moving 13-ish and then threading, so you're threading like 18 to 20. That stuff has a really good kind of like threat envelope that can cover all the midboard objectives. So because trading those objectives is so important, and being able to contest your opponent on them while they're hiding, potentially behind terrain features on them, and the fact that those units can't be wall blocked anymore. So these things like Lord Exalted and Infractor squads will always get the hit on people, means that it's way easier to engage with these light little skirmishing units than it was previously. A lot of missions as well. There's like a ton of really aggressive secondary missions that require you to push really far forward, which means, and it's obviously depending on the disposition of the opponent, they might also be incentivized to push really far forward in order to score their missions based on the matchup, which means that Coterie of the Conceited is able to, like, in a lot more cases, farm those kills. Now, there are some builds that are coming out of the woodwork that are using really, really limited unit count in order to try to defeat something like a Purge the Foe disposition. But I don't know if we're at the point in the metagame where that's going to be like solidified quite yet. So we'll see. They haven't updated the rules because they ran out of AI tokens. Yeah, they can't make any more. They can't write any more articles for Warhammer Community because their ChatGPT ran out, unfortunately. Yeah. So in this case, we're running double Winged Demon Princes, double Lord Exultant with Infractor squads. We should be indicating where they're attaching, but I imagine that they're attaching to the Infractor squads. Obviously, that is an error, but I'm sure that as the convention changes, people will pick that up. Tormentors for OBSEC, double Rhinos in order to deliver the Infractors, double Defiler for shooting, double Flawless Blades because they're good for late game and killing big, punchy stuff. Looks like we are running las cannons, battle cannon, excruciator cannons. Interesting that we've moved from the ectoplasma cannon, the high AP shot, to the higher volume, low AP battle cannon shot. So you end up with a ton of AP1 multi-damage attacks. Obviously, AP1 doesn't matter so much with the new cover rules, so you're still able to get a lot of value out of those attacks. Regardless with the new cover rules. So that's, I think, a relatively standard one. The other one that obviously has been getting a ton of discourse is Tau Empire. So we've seen a lot of like X1, sort of high placing Tau Empire. We haven't seen them, go undefeated quite yet, but I'm sure that we'll see that in the near future. Tau, in relation to a lot of factions, ended up getting points discounts, and based on force dispositions and the layouts that an event is playing, they do tend to have just an absolute or just a lot of threat range. Their ability to reach out and touch the deployment zone is incredibly effective. We did see, I think, the TO yesterday was telling me he watched a Piranha unit basically like move from the Tau player's deployment zone into the other player's deployment zone and kill a repulsor on the top of one. It's like, there's no counterplay to that, you know. You just gotta wait for it to happen and hope they don't roll lethal hits or whatever, which is just not the most ideal situation to be in. So detachments like Monka, very strong, obviously. And I think there's some other Tau builds that are going to be relatively good. We'll see if they end up being sort of number one. I think that they're going to be close, but we'll see. This list did lose one round. It went X and 1, running an Enforcer battlesuit with Exemplar of the Monka plus a Star Scythe battlesuit team. These guys are super cheap right now, by the way, too. Somebody brought up the point to me the other day that if you run Burst Cannon Star Scythe battlesuits, and in this detachment, obviously, you can guide them. They can gain lethal hits, high attack volume, and then if they're attacking non-vehicles, they're AP1, and you can focus fire them for AP2. And we do have a Kroot Warshaper, so we have access to focus fire for free. So focus fire is a stratagem that lets you... I don't like that. Let's see if I can fix that. There's like a button on the bottom of this here that when I try to click to the window, I always click on. Focus Fire is a stratagem that you use on 2 Tau Empire units. One of those could be a Kroot unit, so you can use it on the Warshaper himself. And then he discounts the cost of that stratagem, and it forces him and one other unit to target one target and gives them all +1 AP. The Warshaper, we don't care about his guns. He's going to hide in the back, so it doesn't matter. But the Star Scythes or whatever we're targeting with is going to matter. So we can basically just, for free, choose one thing, and as long as one of your units shoots all its guns at that one thing, you get +1 AP. So it's like almost an Oath of Moment or something that you just get in addition for taking this Warshaper to just pump up your AP values. So these guys with a Marker Light are ignoring cover. They're gaining lethal hits in the first 3 battle rounds, which is when most of the fighting is going to happen. And they can be AP2 with 1,000,000 attacks in some situations. For 90 points, that's crazy when you consider that this is the same points value as a jump pack, like a jump pack intercessor squad. The jump pack intercessor squad is like 5 Space Marines. However, Starsight Battlesuit team is 3 Crisis Battlesuits with shield drones. So it's 15 wounds at toughness 5 for 90 points with fly. So despite the fact that they're not infantry, so they can't hide and they have to go around terrain features or take to the skies to go over terrain features, they are still monumentally efficient when it comes to just using them as utility, which is crazy. When you consider the fact that you can take these super powerful like skirmishing units and just take them at the same rate that other factions take their screening units, which is wild. So definitely some interesting decisions to have made there in terms of points values. We have Dark Striders to protect the back line. He's really important because he has an Omni Scrambler effect. The nice thing, too, is about all of these independent infantry units, because these are not attached, and we know that because they aren't assigned as being attached in the list. All these independent characters can touch terrain to gain the equivalent of a lone operative kind of effect. So unlike previous editions where you would have to kind of baby these characters, make sure nobody could ever see them because they would randomly get shot. If you are standing on a terrain feature and you're behind a dense wall, or a solid wall, you have a 12-inch lone operative from anything shooting you from the other side of that wall. So it's really difficult to get line of sight to these guys. You can even make them very difficult to target for like long-range guns and things. So I think that we are in, first of all, a new age of characters in general. Characters embedded inside units are incredibly powerful if you have strong and vulnerable saves on them because of how wound allocation works. But also, independent infantry characters are also, I think, going to be relatively good, especially if they either have a support effect like the Warshaper does or Darkstrider does, or if they are independently fast. So stuff like, I don't know, jump pack Chaos Lords, or Last Whip Tyranid Primes. Like Tyranid Primes are this like cool skirmishing unit now where you can hide them in terrain and then jump out and clear a unit for relatively low investment. Really, pretty cool, actually. As a bona fide enjoyer of Hero Hammer, I think these kind of units are really cool and they are going to be very strong. We're running a big broadside battlesuit unit with high yield missile pods. This is another unit we can focus fire on to just vaporize stuff, which is sweet. We have 2 Pathfinder teams for early game, 2 Piranhas for skirmishing, 3 Riptide battlesuits. Looks like we are running ion accelerators on all of those. Double stealth battlesuits and a Bespin Stingwing unit. Mostly, other than obviously the attachment stuff, mostly looks like a 10th edition list. Let's see. I'm going to take a look and see if there are any other armies that have kind of are playing very similar stuff than what we saw previously. Across the board for a lot of these events, we've seen very similar results for stuff like Emperor's Children and Tau. And we have a couple of Necrons we can talk about, which I think are going to be in a kind of a similar spot as well. So this is from Thess Tabletop. This list ended up going. Actually, I don't know necessarily how this actually worked, because it depends on how you actually play the core rules of the game. There is a list that won all of its first 3 games. It ended up losing in the semifinals. And it was Awakened Dynasty. This is questionable because Awakened Dynasty right now has Resurrection Protocol, or a Protocol of the Eternal Revenant, excuse me. Resurrection Protocols is the old rule. There's an open question currently about how reanimation protocols and effects that proc reanimation protocols work when you're a character attached to a unit of guys. And basically, there's an FAQ which people have chosen to ignore in some cases, which I don't think is correct, that says that if your bodyguard unit is destroyed and you are a character, you cannot reanimate the bodyguard. So we are attaching Orican the Diviner plus an Overlord into a Necron Warrior unit. If you ever lose all the Necron Warriors and the Canoptic Tomb Crawlers, because they embed, you could then never reanimate Warriors or Tomb Crawlers back. You would have just 2 characters running around and healing themselves. That's what the FAQ says, essentially verbatim, but because it's a FAQ that's like transposed from 10th edition, a lot of people have chosen to ignore it. I don't know necessarily exactly how that works. The problem becomes that you could destroy the entire Necron Warrior and Tomb Crawler unit and all of its attached characters, and all the Necron player has to do is say, I'm going to use Protocol of the Eternal Revenant, return the attached character to play, and then go, I'm going to use Reanimation Protocols and begin to return Necron Warriors to play. So you're basically able to lose an entire unit and then respawn both the character and his unit. And if you have multiple instances of reanimation protocol activation, if you have a reanimator nearby, if you have a resurrection orb available, that can be a little problematic. I don't know necessarily exactly how that's being played. It seems like it's going to be a contentious issue for now, and it's going to be played differently in different communities, which, I don't know, makes Awakened Dynasty very, very different in terms of its actual power level. That said, there's some other interesting things you can do with this detachment. The first one is that if you don't end up losing the Necron Warrior unit, and in fairness, it is more difficult to protect the entire Warrior unit now because you no longer have the ability to chain the Warriors to such an extent that you did previously. It's also a little bit tougher to hide them behind like line of sight blocking stuff because if you're inside terrain, obviously it's much easier to see you unless you're using like giant line of sight blocking walls or something. So your unit has to be more condensed. However, unlike previous editions where you could try to precision and kill all the characters and allow only one of them to Eternal Revenant, and then if you kill him again, he's dead forever. Now, you can kill the character, but if you leave the bodyguard unit alive, there is no restriction against reanimating the character. So reanimation protocols can just add the character back to the unit. So even if you precision Orican, for example, the unit does not necessarily lose its not a Feel No Pain, it's invulnerable save, because you could just reanimation protocols back the guy. Which is very, very, very strong. So like the classic contention, which was that as soon as you start losing the characters inside these units, things get really tough, is alleviated by the fact that As long as you protect at least one member of the unit, you can start to bring those characters and their buffs back. Now, the other thing is that precision only affects one character per attack sequence now. So even if I like epic challenge you with my character and my character has one melee weapon, that melee weapon will hit one of those characters and put him at the start of the attack sequence, but the other character will be at the end. So sometimes if you got a really good activation into these dual attached units, you could say, I'm going to epic challenge, and you get one shot in the character and one shot into the second character. That doesn't work anymore. So it's even more difficult to precision out both characters all at once and prevent them from regenerating. Not that it matters so much. It is, I guess, a little difficult to reanimate like both characters in one go if they're both fully dead, because you need a lot of wounds of reanimation to get to the point where you get the second one back. But, we'll see. Obviously, you do have reactive reanimations and stuff like that in Awakened Dynasty. Tio ruled that the leader can return the bodyguard even if it was fully destroyed, but the leader cannot return with normal reanimation if it died to precision. That's bizarre. That's the opposite of how it works. I guess that does mean that, like, you can precision him out. At least, like, as long as there is an answer to this unit, I think that's good. That's fine. The ability to reanimate the character and the bodyguard unit feels so abusive to me. I don't know. I also should mention, this is an important thing because we were discussing this on stream yesterday. And I do want to call out something. There's a weird set of sequencing rules that basically place mission rules, which is a nebulous concept. I don't entirely know what mission rules mean, at the start of any end of phase sequence. And the implication there is that if you are reanimating onto an objective or resurrecting models onto an objective, you wouldn't recalculate level of control, assuming that is a mission rule, which it seems like it is, but I don't know, until you wouldn't reanimate until after level of control is calculated. That's actually wrong, because there is an end of command phase clause in section 805, which says that you resolve all end of command phase triggers first, then you resolve mission aspects. So I would imagine, I don't know if any TO would disagree with this, that you would, at the end of command phase specifically, you would do all your reanimation protocols and stuff. You would reanimate models onto an objective, then you would trigger mission effects. So it's a little nebulous whether or not you can reanimate onto an objective and then take the objective, but the implication seems to be that you can do that in the command phase explicitly. I'm not 100% sure, but that seems like it feels like it's how it's supposed to work. I was wondering if it was the case that you could still reanimate, like you could do the play pattern where you put a model on the objective, your opponent kills it, and you pull him off so they can't see him in the unit anymore, and then you reanimate him back on. Whether or not that would control the objective, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like it does. So I don't know. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Mission rules would be the primary mission card. I don't know if it actually says that though. Like I don't know if mission rule, I'm not sure, is like actually defined anywhere. It would strike me as strange if the way that I control objectives placed by the mission was not a rule pertaining to that mission, but I could definitely see the argument that it's not, because that might be a core rule. But like obviously the rule that basically everything is a core rule according to the app. Like a core rule means even rules that aren't in the core rules are considered core rules. So who fucking knows, dude? It needs another FAQ. Basically, I think it's a TO thing. But that was something I wanted. I was discussing on stream the other day, and I did want to make the mention that I don't know necessarily if it's the case that reanimation protocols can't control objectives, or can't change level of control on objectives because of that clause in the end of command phase step rules. That definitely, I think, is something that you probably need to talk to a TO about before you try to do reanimation protocol stuff. That's why, like, this feels a little bit weird to me, just because, like, it's so jank right now. I don't even know if I would touch that for the 10-foot pole, because we actually literally don't know how this detachment works, essentially. We are running a Scorpic Lord with an Agic Durable Bond, and a Scorpic Destroyer unit. We're running a Canoptic Wraith unit with a Technomancer. We're running one Nightbringer, Imhotep the Stormlord to give us command points, Necrosaur Imitar to give us sustained hits, Canoptic Reanimator, as well as a Flayed 1 unit, Locust Heavy Destroyers, one Locust Heavy Destroyer with an Exterminator for utility, Ophidian Destroyers for Uppy Downy, and a Toonblade unit. Pretty standard stuff, I think. Otherwise, this does feel very much like a 10th edition list. But I thought it would be interesting to discuss because of all of the weird shit that Necrons have right now. Yeah, I don't know. It does feel weird that they did buff Necrons. Yeah. But like it could be that they come in and codify that like reanimation protocols isn't supposed to change control of objectives because there's an implication in the rules that that's the case. In which case, Necrons do feel much worse because suddenly this thing that they used to do to maintain parity on primary is much more difficult, and your opponent can attack Necron units more freely without necessarily giving them more OC onto objectives. I actually do wonder if it would be maybe you're allowed to reanimate like leaders and bodyguards back to the table after one of the components dies or whatever, but maybe we change your objective control characteristics a little bit. Yeah, I think a lot of those open questions that we have seem like they're things that are going to get FAQ'd next month. So I would wait until next month to make a final judgment on exactly how that whole faction works. It just sucks that there's basically two whole factions between Necrons and Adepta Sororitas that we just don't know how their core mechanics function. It's not like a question of like, are their core mechanics typoed? We actually don't know. And that's problematic. Let's talk for a moment about Thousand Suns. I talked about Thousand Suns in my video this morning. Dan Miloro won the Summer Ruin GT, which I live streamed using Thousand Suns, using Sekatar Cohort, which feels to me like one of the most insanely strong detachments in the game right now. Let's talk about exactly why. There we go. Nope, not you. There we go. So Sekatar robots are nutty. These guys are 40 points per model. They're 10 points per wound at T6 with 3+ save, 5+ invulnerable. Already relatively tanky. They also have stealth, which is relevant because oftentimes they aren't going to be in terrain. So getting a passive benefit of cover is going to be helpful for them because they aren't infantry. They are vehicles, which means they don't hide anywhere. So they have to hide behind terrain features. This all seems like downside, and it kind of is. However, here's the thing. They have this ability, which lets you discount the use of Fire Overwatch or Heroic Intervention Stratagem by 1. Fire Overwatch it's an alright ability, right? It's okay. It's fine. It's, you get to attack for free, but you hit on 6s. You can't reroll, so I saw a lot of people just like throwing those Overwatches out, even though like they're just fishing for 6s and it's not that effective. You can also play around it by hiding. If you're in hidden, you can't be targeted by attacks, so you can't be overwatched by things that are greater than 15 inches away. So as long as you haven't shot yet, you can just like run up and just stay outside of Overwatch of scary things and it's fine. However, Sekatar robots are this infiltrating unit that you're going to put up in the front of the table and threaten objectives. They're infiltrating behind terrain areas that are within striking distance of your expansion, for example. You have to come out and attack them, and because they're not inside their terrain features, oftentimes that means that you have to enter those terrain features to be able to charge them, for example, or to be able to see them, which means that then, after you move every single one of those models, the Thousand Suns player gets to go, he gets to look at the board state. He gets to have a little think to himself. Look at all these models that you've put here. You have some tanks and you have some infantry. I think I will shoot the tank or the infantry with all of my torrent weapons for free. So the fact that you have 3 units with this effect, obviously only one of them can do it because you can't overwatch multiple times. Only one of them gets to do it. But you get to see which one is the most impactful on that turn. And unlike a normal Overwatch, where it's going to cost you the opportunity cost of holding command points or obviously spending command points in order to do that, the Thousand Suns player just gets to throw it out whenever, right? It's just passive value. And these guys can take up to 2 flamer weapons. They get their heavy warp flamer. It's an AP2 flamer, but they also can take an AP1 warp flame projector. That's already pretty good. In addition to that, because of the Sekitar cohort detachments, they have psychic weapons, which means all of these attacks ignore all modifiers, including cover. And if you combo that with Hexwarp Thrallband, it also gives them +1 to wound, assuming that you are controlling your flow of magic, which, if you have taken at least 2 objectives in the middle of the table with Zangors or something stupid, the opponent hasn't taken them back before they go to their movement phase, you are likely to have flow of magic in the middle. Now, there's obviously like, I guess this does like open the beg the open question of when level of control gets recalculated during a phase. I think that it happens before you would trigger Fire Overwatch. So if the opponent moves up and takes all the objectives away from you, I don't believe you would get +1 to wound, but you still get reroll 1s to wound, which you can get because snap shooting only prevents you from getting hit rerolls. Otherwise, who fucking knows when it happens? It's actually not covered in the rules. So I think that the only rule that we have like that indicates when it would happen would be before you do Fire Overwatch. So in fairness, it is possible to prevent them from getting +1 to wound. However, it does require that you move into the terrain features. And as we just said, that just gives them line of sight to you. So you get pretty easy line of sight to like utility units and things that are coming in and trying to perform objectives or trying to steal objectives away. You get to cook those units on your opponent's turn and then just continuously threaten their expansion objectives on it with a unit that's relatively tough to kill. So you requires more than 160 points worth of effort to actually kill them in the crackback. So as a skirmishing unit, despite the fact they're not infantry, and there's a lot of weirdness with them for being vehicles, they're also, it's important, I should note as well, they're also vehicles that don't suffer bring it down. You can't bring them down because they're not 10 wounds. So they're bring it down doesn't care about vehicles anymore, it just cares about model or model count. So total wounds count. But it is funny that they don't really suffer any secondaries by playing aggressively. So for 480 points, less than a quarter of your army, you get 3 of these units or 4 guys that are just up in the middle, fucking your shit up. In order to deal with that, you have to come out and shoot these things. And when you do that, you get doom dropped by all this shit. This list is really cool. The Dan Molaro's list, which I talked about previously, had a big unit of Scarab Cult Terminators that would basically like fulfill this role. But this list is doing it with Demon Princes of Tzeentch. If you are able to take objectives back and gain flow of magic to gain the +1 to wound on your psychic attacks, all these Demon Princes are dropping in with 9-shot sustained weapons, potentially sustained D3 that ignore cover, obviously, and also get +1 to wound or reroll 1s, one or the other, based on your flow of magic. So you can just like have a unit push forward, kill the Sekitar robots, and then just get doom dropped by Demon Princes and absolutely vaporized. 1, rapid ingresses, it moves forward. You drop 2 more with Easter Stride. They shoot that thing. The 3rd one charges it, and you kill basically whatever. You also have Magnus, so your rituals are very consistent. And Magnus also gets that +1 to wound. He's high OC, so he's very good at taking objectives by himself. And he shoots 1 billion times, right? 3d3 from the gaze, plus d6 plus 3 from the blast attack. All of those naturally ignore cover. And he's benefiting from the detachment ability. So, like, Sekitar Cohort and Hexwarp Thrallband work together so synergistically, it's crazy. The fact that the Sekitar robots gain psychic weapons means they benefit from Hexwarp Thrallband, and they're good at taking objectives, so they can provide Hexwarp Thrallband bonuses, and they basically toilet bowl your opponent into engaging in the center of the table, which means you're going to be able to engage them over the objectives you're going to unlock to benefit Hexwarp Thrallband. Watching this list play was wild. Like, it wasn't like this crazy thing where the opponent, like, it would just like 1-2 combo and your opponent would die, but it was like incrementing value to the point that the opponent was like, there's no way for me to profitably attack this, and it's gonna just score points and slowly push me into a corner. And it was like really weird. I think a lot of it is the efficiency of Secretary robots. They're crazy efficient right now. Probably one of the best infiltrators of the game, if not the best infiltrator of the game. Like full stop. They just beat every other utility unit ever, period. And they also can shoot big stuff good, which is great. So yeah, it's pretty wild, this combination of effects. I do appreciate that our friend Brian Zebley over here decided to play 5 Demon Princes because I think that's really Chad. 5 Demon Princes is cool as fuck. You could play more normal stuff like Rubric Marines or whatever, but those aren't as cool as 5 Demon Princes, which is pretty sweet. So let's go. Hexorp's also taken hold. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is very, very straightforward for it. It looks like he did use Taken Hold. I think everyone I've seen has been using Taken Hold with these guys for sure. Good stuff. Had a nightmare match against robots. Yeah. I think honestly, it's like robots feel like the most insane thing. Nothing else in the detachment feels like wildly powerful. I mean, it's like Thousand Suns, so the stuff is good, and having like army-wide ignore covers really, really strong. But the robots were just like, what the fuck? Like they infiltrate up in a lot of the things that would you use to answer infiltrators. Let's say you're like, oh, you have an infiltrating unit. I'm going to take like my unit of jump pack intercessors or like my last reputed prime or whatever. And I'm going to go answer that unit, right? I'm going to trade. We're going to trade 1 for 1. I'm going to kill most of them. I'm going to make them combat ineffective. It's fine. You do that. And then they cook your unit with Overwatch for free. And you're like, oh no. And if you don't do that, then they just like rapid ingress a Demon Prince in front of you, and then he goes and kills the unit that was about to go do that anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It's just wild. All right, chats. So Thousand Suns looking really strong. We've seen consistently good results from many, many different Thousand Suns players over the course here. From there, the other army that has kind of come out of the woodwork, like the little cockroach that it is Tyranids. And Tyranids, what a fucking Phoenix rising from the ashes Tyranids have been in this edition. Every single core mechanical change has been positive for Tyranids. Psychic weapons are good. Tyranids are amazing. Battle Shock is good. Tyranids are great. Mid-range threat ranges, where like having a medium movement characteristic unit that advances and charges is really strong. Tyranids are loving it. Mass like infantry bonuses, making your infantry harder to kill, even if they are low defensive characteristic. Tyranids are phenomenal. The one way Tyranids like didn't get buffed is that like it's much harder to like turn 1 deep strike people. That's basically it. That's like the only way that Tyranids are strictly better than they were. So we can hand on over to Thess Tabletop and talk about Subterranean Assault, which I thought was kind of dead, to be honest. I was like, well, it has to make 7-inch charges out of reserve. Oh, my cat's here. What's up, kitty cat? Inky. Here, you want to come visit? Come on. Oh, come say hi to Tristram. Yeah, there you are. Inky's had a little bit of a problem where 2 times this morning she tried to jump from the floor into her cat tree and she missed and knocked the cat tree over. There you go, baby. Yeah, I know. You're very cute. I think that's mostly because she's a klutz, but I might have to weigh down the base. So she doesn't do that anymore. But she's been hanging out with me while I've been editing videos all morning. So, the funny thing is, what you want to be doing is doing a 6-inch deep strike thing. However, 6-inch deep strikes require a 7-inch charge out of reserve, which means it's significantly less likely that you make them than it was previously when you only needed a 6-inch charge. That said, Subterranean Assault does something very nice. First of all, army-wide rerolls to hit. Phenomenal. We love that. It gives you ignore cover on a stick, which is also very good, and it gives you lots of uppy-downy. So, the downside is that Tyranid-like psychic attacks, Zoanthropes, for example, do tend to be kind of difficult to point at stuff, because they're a big, fat unit that's relatively slow. However, being able to Subterranean Assault them around the table means that you can consistently reposition them into places where you can just shoot at whatever you want. So, you can use all this like really cheap Tyranid stuff to trade for objectives and pressure your opponent. Your opponent has to come deal with them, and then immediately, as soon as anything juicy is anywhere, there's a Zoanthrope unit there shooting at it. So Subterranean Assault works very differently than it did last edition. Where last edition, you would like hold, you would white knuckle, hold, you would like just teleport some stuff around, and then you were like, all right, it's go turn, and you would just teleport a bunch of melee into your opponent. Now, it's this skirmishing army where you're like fighting with smaller units on the table, but then your guns are repositioning around and constantly shooting at things. Getting ignore cover, getting ignore modifiers on a lot of that shooting is hugely powerful too. And the other thing is that it has disruption as a force disposition, which means that it can dodge some of the really bad matchups that you get for other Tyranid dispositions when it comes to like Purge the Foe, for example. So disruption against Purge the Foe gives you a mission where like the Purge the Foe player can score a bunch of points by killing like one specific enemy per turn, essentially. If you play a lot of the other force dispositions into Purge as a Tyranid player, you're taking a lot of independent little units, and you're generating a lot of units as the game goes on, which means a lot of the Purge missions they just print money against Tyranids. They're just like, Tyranids, this is amazing. I'm going to kill a Spore Mine. I'm going to kill a Hormagon unit. I'm going to kill Pyrovore. All this stuff, I'm just going to farm for points. Disruption doesn't have that issue because they're going to kill one thing and they're going to get their normal points every turn. And you're like, that's fine. And the disruption force disposition is pretty good if they can kill a bunch of Purge models as well. So that's all very interesting. So in this case, we're running a Neurotyrant with a Zoanthrope unit. We love that. We have a bunch of Last Rip Tyranid Primes, which are phenomenal. These guys, with the new Pilot and Consolidate rules, you find very often, especially with Subterranean Assault, which makes their accuracy basically auto hit because they have sustained hits naturally, and they hit on 2s and they reroll 1s. So the only failure point is when you reroll a 1 into a 1, and you shouldn't have more attacks than you started with. Even if you're not coming out of a tunnel, you're just on the table and advancing and charging into people. So you can have these Last Rip Tyranid Primes that can threaten all the objectives, and oftentimes what you can do is you can touch a unit with like a Hormagon squad, and then you can slingshot the Prime to engage a second unit. And you can use the Hormagons and one of the Prime's weapons to kill the first unit, and you can use the Prime's big attack, his second weapon, to kill the second unit. And oftentimes, for 140 points, I think they are, you can have these little squads just jump across the table, take an objective 145. And 2 for 1 the opponent, which is fucking awesome. These units are amazing. You have hyper-adapted Raveners plus a Ravener unit, which is also good because you're able to uppy downy them, rapid ingress them for free, and put them in a hidden spot and then jump up and grab an objective or punch a vehicle because you have a lot of twin-linked anti-monster attacks, which is very helpful. We've got Red Terror, which is another good sort of generator for your tunnel markers. Another hyper-adapted Ravener squad, so we have more rapid ingress threats onto objectives, plus Death Leaper, and then a bunch of guns. So a Maliceptor, another psychic weapon that's hard to kill, a Norn Assimilator. He's just a guy. I'm not actually really sure what he's there, but he's good. You can like deliver him pretty well with Subterranean, but he has like some weirdness with his gun, I think. He has the Harpooned effect, which selects a monster vehicle hit by its attacks, and at the end of the turn, when he selects you as the target of a charge, you get plus to the charge roll. These effects are weird. They require an FAQ, I think. Like adding to the charge roll doesn't really do anything because at the time you've selected your charge target, like the charge roll is already converted into like your charge minimum distance, I guess. So it doesn't actually let you charge things farther away. It just lets you charge things close that are easier. So it's very strange. What it needs to do is be like, what it's probably going to end up being is that if you hit a monster vehicle, you can reroll your charges in the charge phase. If you do so, you must target the monster vehicle as your charge target. Or it will be like you can add +2 to your roll. If you do so, you must choose the monster vehicle as the charge target. But it hasn't changed that yet, so we'll see. So it is what it is. Why are Death Leapers popular? So she's kind of hard to kill because she's got an invuln save. So she's kind of like a Neurolictor in that. In addition, the Battle Shock like aura is very powerful because she has a 6-inch aura of -1 leadership. So because you're oftentimes forcing multiple Battle Shock checks on people, the -1 leadership is like more impactful than it was previously. So you can, in a lot of cases, what this army tends to do is it like skirmishes for a little bit with your opponent, maybe throws a unit away, maybe like does something, and then it full sends everything. So like round 2 or round 3, you like run in a Tyranid Prime, you like deep strike your hyper adapted, you like jump, make a couple 7-inch charges out of reserve, and you like rapid ingress a unit and run them in and kill something. And then you shadow, and most of their front line is within 6 inches of Death Leaper and or Synapse creatures, and you have a Neuro Tyrant on the table, which means they're -3 to Battle Shock. And then, so they're -3 to Battle Shock in their turn, and then if they, after suffering that and losing stratagems and losing objectives and all that shit, they come back and don't kill the Death Leaper, they take a Battle Shock on the next turn, and they're still -1. So the chances that you fail the subsequent Battle Shock check is improved, as long as Death Leaper's still hanging out. And if your whole army's engaged, it's kind of difficult to single out Death Leaper as an attacker. Which is good. Battle Shock assist, good, indeed. That is basically the case. Screamer Killer Carnifex be good? They're okay. I would say they're perfectly serviceable. The problem is that like 7-inch charges out of Deep Strike are a little bit rough, but it's like a 75%, 80% or whatever that you get in with the charge. So yeah, it is what it is. According to him, Crusher plus Warriors did well. Not to my knowledge. On the armies that I have on BCP, none of them at 4-1 or better are using those attachments. So I don't know where those numbers are coming from. There are some really weird results from 10th edition events from this weekend. We had an undefeated Imperial Agents list, which is wild. It's like the last event of 10th edition, which is very funny. But I don't believe, to my knowledge, I know about any of those ones. Oh no, that's not true. No, I totally know where that's from. That we can look at that list next. I just bloviated for a moment about how I didn't recognize that list, and then I found it. So just kidding. It's from a different thing. Yeah, the Agents list, yeah, it got like a bunch of 100-point wins. Yeah, it was wild. Absolutely insane. I'm interested, like, I don't know, the meta game of like 10th edition events from this weekend was I don't know, pretty weird. The chat box at the bottom is broken. It seems to be working for me, chat. I'll refresh it just in case. So if you use the official Games Workshop ranking system, it uses Path to Victory as the ranking. So even if you got more points than your opponent and you scored less than them, what that typically meant is that you played weaker players to get there. So you have more points likely because you got pair downs, or the players that you played against in the early round were didn't end up doing well in the tournament. Unfortunately, I mean, like, tiebreaker systems are always bizarre in games like these. In cases where they matter and they can be a big deal, it gets feel badsy. But basically, there's no way to do a tiebreaker system that doesn't just reward you for noob stomping, and that they basically done the one that they feel is the best. But that's in the official GW packet. Is how it works. The Open this weekend was using 10th edition. Yeah. The TO this weekend kept coming back to me and being like, Trevi, you have 3 times as many viewers as the official GW live stream because they're streaming the old edition. I was like, oh, well, it is what it is. All right, we can talk about Crusher Stampede. Yeah. So I apologize, chat. I just totally didn't even take a look at the list here. So this was using Crusher Stampede plus Warrior Bioform Onslaught. Warrior Bioform Onslaught, by the way, absolutely badass attachment. Super sick. Giving your Tyranid Primes invulnerable saves is kind of a huge deal, because if they're attached into a gaunt unit or something, the gaunts are going to eat all their low saves, and then your 5s and 6s go on your invuln. So the fact that Warrior Bioform affects the characters is absolutely massive. You can also take Elevated Might, which is the most insane. It's so expensive, but it's the most insane melee buff of all time. So all your last ship Tyranid Primes, Wing Tyranid Prime, Tyranid Warrior units gain a 5+ invuln save. If you take this enhancement, I played a game with this enhancement. I believe it's up on my second channel now. It gives you twin linked and +1 AP on all your melee attacks, which is nutty. So Tyranid Prime with doing that's like throwing 14 AP3 melee attacks at people with almost full rerolls. Absolutely insane. It does cost him, makes him cost 100 points, but it is what it is. Oh, we did take Elevated Might. There you go, chat. Ta-da! So running double melee bioweapon warriors. The nice thing here is that the last ship Tyranid Prime comes in at movement 10, so he does increase the threat range, the ambient threat range of the warriors by quite a bit. You can do the thing where basically the warriors deploy in front of him, he deploys slightly behind, and then he leapfrogs them. So you end up like basically going, 7 or so inches beyond the first guy, and you don't run into coherency problems. And then that unit just hits like a truck. They get reroll once they hit naturally when they use their offensive melee stance, and then those can turn into sustained hits from the Tyranid Prime, and then the Tyranid Prime also gets reroll once they hit back from the unit, so he again sustains more times. He's full rerolls if he has the Elevated Might guy. So this unit just like fucking kills the universe. It's not that crazy, but if you are not toughness 12, they will kick the shit out of you. Absolutely. I think with the last ship Tyranid Prime, this unit's probably handing you like, I don't know, like 15 or 20 damage. Let's see. We have another unit with Ocular Adaptation that's +1 to hit. We have a Hive Tyrant. We have the Red Terror. The Red Terror, I guess, gets the benefit of the Crusher Stampede bonuses, so it's actually kind of a neat little guy. Hormagaunts in there, but just for disruption. We have Bioforce, an Exocrit, a Haruspex, double Lictor, Norn Emissary, double Terrain effects. So I think a lot of times what we're going to be doing is, Crusher Stampede has a stratagem to buff its guns, right? Swarm Guided Salvos to give you ignore cover and ignore ballistic skill characteristic modifiers, which is a very powerful effect in this edition. There are going to be some armies, and we'll talk about them momentarily, that stack together hit modifiers, and being able to just pay SCP and ignore that with like a big cannon and then just shoot the target is a big deal. You also get you can't both massive and crushing the same unit, but you can both massive and crushing in the same phase, and that's great. I was going to say something else, but I didn't have anything else to say. That's pretty good. So neat. I don't know. I think that's just cool. Yeah, there's a couple like weird oddball lists that are looking pretty good so far. These guys also, if you end up not killing them, they go sort of insane, right? You can ignore modifiers, gain +1 to hit, so you ignore your own damage modifier for a command point, and you also ignore cover, and you get +1 to hit. So if you have a wounded monster that isn't dead yet, you can pay a CP to make it hit on 2s effectively and get +1 to wound. So you can have like a Terrain Effects rock up. If he shoots at something that an Exocrine shot at before, he hits on 2s, rerolling 1s, and wounds the entire game on 2s. And then just hands you 2 AP4 saves, which most vehicles in the game can't save, which means he basically one-shots on 2s into 2s almost anything. The important thing to note, though, is that you can't command point reroll any of that if you've already used Swarm Guided Salvos on that interaction, because we can't do 2 stratagems. So here you go. Pretty cool stuff. I don't know. That's really neat. And I think also the fact that it's just a lot of like heavily armored shooting means that your opponent has to come in and deal with it. So these warrior bricks actually just like end up murdering them. The warriors are also, if you ignore the enhancements, are not too expensive. They're 250 points with the enhancements. But if you ignore the enhancements, they're relatively efficient. And you have a -1 to be wounded strat for them as well. So against like anti-heavy infantry shooting, they have the combination of a invuln save and the stratagem that can be pretty effective together. Need Carnifex Brutes to be good? That might be a little bit tough. I think that there's maybe some place for like Old One Eye, for example. He's like kind of a spooky guy with 1 Carnifex. He's kind of efficient and he hits really hard. And then if his Carnifex dies, he doesn't lose reroll hits, which is always like was the big contention last edition. But I don't know. There's still stuff going on. We can talk about some Drukhari. Yeah, I like old 1-eye plus 1. Like 2 Carnifexes feels like a lot, but there's something to be said for, because they just trudge around and do stuff, there's something to be said for like 2 gun Carnifexes in old 1-eye still, because then you don't really care about the weird melee that they have. Like Carnifexes have an issue where if you're fighting, especially around terrain, it's almost impossible to get all 3 of them into the fight at the same time unless you just like boss your charges, because they can't fight through each other anymore. But if you just play old 1-eye and then the rest of the units shooting, you can like deep strike them around the table and murder people with them. And then just like, you don't really care about the other 2 fighting. So you just have old 1-eye as like the fighting guy. And then if they shoot you, you're going to take damage on the other Carnifexes. And like old 1-eye is going to blistering assault around the table and then continue to fight people. I think that unit's probably okay, especially in like subterranean assaults. Like, they do enough damage to utility stuff, and they're annoying enough to kill, and you can reposition them. It might be fine. We'll see. I'm actually curious to play them. I think I'm gonna. I don't know if I'll stream them. But I think I might play some subterranean assault games tonight. I'll certainly record them if I play, and I'll put them on my YouTube, on my second channel. But I'm interested in seeing how they go, for sure. All right, let's talk about Drukhari. This one's gonna Drukhari are a bit of a blind spot for me, and I think a lot of players, because they didn't really see that much play in 10th edition besides some very specific builds. We watched an insane series of interactions from Kabalite Cartel, which unironically seems really good this edition. Like, just you basically like get to be invasion fleet, and if your opponent ever lets you kill their your quarry target, you can almost win the game on the spot. They basically have like an almost permanent combination of effects that let them battle shock your whole army over and over. It does require that you play into it, and I think as people see it more, they're gonna play around it, so it's not quite as good as it could be. But there is the opportunity for a Drukhari player to simply push your shit in because you've never played the matchup before. Today, we're talking about the combination of Exhibition of Slaughter and Sky Splinter Assault. So that's a sustained hits and lance when you come out of a transport. And then you also gain lethal hits against non-monster vehicle units on your Witch Cult units. The Witch Cult units will also gain assault. So even against monsters and vehicles, they're going to be winning on 5s or better, which I think is going to be sweet. The weird thing is that it's like lethal hits, but a lot of your attacks are anti-infantry anyway. So it's like, it's good against mounted, I guess, and the weird stuff that you would otherwise have a tough time wounding, but that's a strange one. Looks like they were playing Reconnaissance this time around. They weren't playing Disruption, but definitely Disruption's interesting for them. But Reconnaissance is good because it oftentimes will reward you for playing across the table, which Drukhari is very typically good at doing. And it doesn't necessarily require that you engage with your opponent as much. So Reconnaissance can play kind of its own game and just do whatever it wants as they push around, which is cool. We're taking Lady Malice, a Hand of the Archon, Drazar, an Incubi squad. A lot of the stuff getting Lance is obviously pretty powerful. We have an Archon with Nightmare Shroud, so he cannot be overwatched. I'm going to talk about potentially, I guess he's in a Kabalite Warrior squad, which is not quite as ideal, but if you want to talk about potentially a solution to those Sekitar robot units, you have an Archon in an Incubi squad with Nightmare Shroud, and they just run up a vehicle, jump out of the vehicle, can't be overwatched, charge the guys, and the Incubi should kill at least most of the Sekitar robot unit. It is an expensive investment, but you're only in 200 points to kill 160 pointer or so. We have Lilith Hesperax, a Witch squad. Plus a Homunculus, 2 regular units of witches, 5 Venoms, a Chronos, Hellion unit,
Adriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. The detachment working on Reavers and Hellions is amazing. Nothing can stop the 24 inches Reaver plunder with the one strat.
Oh, there's this with sculpting the stage. That's a great call out, actually, chat. That is really good. That's actually nuts. Yeah, we do have a Reaver unit, and we do have a big Hellion unit. I don't know necessarily if those guys are going to be doing stuff, but the big thing is, so like you're able to, with the Reaver jet bikes, you can auto advance 8 for a pain token, right? And then just like cross the entire table and perform actions. So that's actually super duper cool. The interesting thing is that those pain tokens, the thing we've been noticing as we've been watching these games, the pain token economy for Drukhari is significantly stronger because it comes into play every single time a model fails a battle shock test. And because battle shock tests now repeat themselves, so if you battle shock, you're basically always required to then take a second battle shock check. You essentially gain 50% more pain tokens from failed battle shock checks. So previously, where like you would empower like an Incubi squad and they would force a battle shock check on you and you would pass it, you'd be like, all right, cool. But now, if you fail it, you recuperate the pain token and then you have the chance to get a second pain token next turn, assuming you don't kill the unit. So there's a lot of instances like that where Drukhari have these like out of phase pain token generation or battle shock generation, that can then farm tons and tons of pain tokens. So what we are noticing is that the Drukhari pain economy significantly stronger than it was previously. It's called an infinite money glitch. Indeed, chats. Indeed. So, yeah, Chronos, 10 Hellions, Mandrake squad for Uppy Downy, Reaver squad, so that we can do that advance and do stuff, and then double heavy weapon Scourges. The Scourge is also a very good source of just consistent damage, especially because they have heavy weapons, so very often they're gaining hit rerolls, and they can gain that +1 to hit to offset cover, or to just hit on 3s naturally if they are able to get the heavy weapon bonus. So these guys are very consistent, like shooting platforms as well, which is super duper strong. Oh yeah, Inky's freaking out right now. She's mad that I'm talking to somebody that isn't her. She's very upset. Do you want to go up on the thing? We can hang out, Inky. Yeah. You want to go up there? The door's not closed, is it? No, that's not it. All right. It's just how it's going to be.
Adriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. Also, the Succubus is very good here. She gets lethal sus rerolling hits and wounds against character units and gives you extra CP.
We didn't play a Succubus in this list. Reroll hits and wounds against character units is phenomenal. Can confirm. Sustain plus lethal is good. +1 or reroll advance and charge rolls is good. Anything that rerolls advance charge rolls outside of the stratagem is very strong. Outside of just a normal command reroll is incredibly strong because it still allows you to command reroll later, and you can still do any other charge phase stratagems you have on the unit. So if you have the ability to reroll charges anyway, it is typically much stronger than it was in 10th edition. Iggy's letting herself be hurt. Yeah, she is irascible. She will not be harassed. All right. Let's talk about. I have 3 more factions I want to talk about. 4 more factions I want to talk about. The first one is Grey Knights. Running, I think, what is probably going to become a classic combination of Argent Assault and Banishers. So, Argent Assault is this is 4-1 from SummerCon. Argent Assault is the +1 to wound on Paladin squads as long as the strength of the attack is lower than the toughness characteristic of the target. So you basically never wound on worse than a 5, essentially, against literally anything, which helps Paladins quite a bit because they were incredibly pillow-fisted. If you played them previously, they were, for whatever reason, the hyper-expensive, hyper-elite Terminators of the Grey Knights would come into like any vehicle and just bounce entirely and not do anything. And now they can at least do something. These are also the case that you can typically defense stack them to a pretty reasonable extent. So it's very difficult to one-shot the unit, and then their Apothecary can keep working on them. And on top of that, they also... they also have psychic weapons. So they ignore modifiers and hit roll modifiers, I should say. And you can bring 5 psych cannons in the unit, so they actually shoot pretty good too. Their ability only affects melee attacks because it's selection of fight, but they shooting good is strong. It's pretty good. We also get 4+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. Again, good for devastating and psychic stuff. You can get precision on a whole unit, so you just like automatically kill a character essentially, because these guys are 3 damage on the charge. And you can make enemies hazardous, which is a bit less exciting. But you also get banishers, so we're getting most likely sustained or lethal on the charge as well. So these guys can be sustained hits with +1 to wound, which is pretty good. We have Grandmaster Voltus, who deals mortal wounds and gives the unit -1 to be wounded. So if you can find cover with 10 Paladins, which is difficult, you can be -2 to be hit, essentially. -1 ballistic skill and -1 to be hit. We have a Brotherhood Chaplain with Psychic Celerity. Actually, don't know what that does. Is that from Argent Assault? Psychic Celerity is +1 to charge, so they can make 8-inch charges out of reserve, and then the Brotherhood Chaplain gives you real charges, I believe, right? And then he also gives you bonuses for Battle Shock. So reroll charge rolls. So you're making an 8 out of reserve with a reroll, which is like a 60%er, which is pretty good. Or, of course, it becomes better if you are rapid ingressing and then moving and charging, which definitely offsets the move 5, the base move 5. If you rapid ingress into a relatively safe position, a lot of times you're making like a 7-inch charge on the subsequent turn, but this obviously turns that into a 6-inch rerollable charge without using any stratagems, which is massive. And then you also, he's leadership 5, I believe. Yeah. So he's better against Battle Shock stuff. And you can also choose a thing once per game within 12 inches to unbattle shock. So if your opponent has persistent Battle Shock effects, you can just not be affected by them one time, which is very powerful. We take a regular Brotherhood Terminator squad, no attachments with them, just a tough to kill unit that shoots good. Double Strike Squad, Double Interceptor Squad, a Land Raider Redeemer. Is that to deliver the Strike Squad? Or the Terminator Squad, excuse me? That's crazy, actually. The Brotherhood Terminators do get lethal hits on the charge, I believe. Is that right? That was their ability in the index. No, it's +1 AP now. But I mean, I guess having a decent like onboard unit is good. Oh, we also have the Chaplain's in a unit of 5, so he could be delivered by the Land Raider as well, if we wanted to. If we didn't want to do deep strike stuff with him, that's interesting. I guess I don't know where who we're gonna throw in there, which is cool. Land Raider Redeemer, Double Interceptors. We could also put the Interceptors in there to begin with, although. So they can like shoot and scoot in and out of the Redeemer, and they can also just like disembark the Redeemer early and run up. The Redeemer is also like one of the best Overwatch targets in the game, of course, because you get to see where all your opponent's models go and then shoot one of them. So they're basically just like this giant this giant 12-inch no-go zone. There's no way to play around the Overwatch. You just can't go within 12 inches of them and in their line of sight if you want to live. So you essentially have to engage with Land Raider Redeemers with ranged attacks, which in fairness, like they're much less survivable against. However, it is still worth discussing. And then we have another Paladin squad as well for the +1 to wound. The Paladin abilities, it should be mentioned, do not affect the Brotherhood Terminators. Only the actual Paladin squads themselves. Your Redeemer's really good at 250. The thing I will say though is that like the 2+ save big vehicles, like the 2+ save heavy vehicles that we saw defensive stack last edition are like gratuitously easier to kill this edition. So if you're like, look at my big Redeemer, like I'm gonna Overwatch you. If you have anti-tank at all, you can probably just kill it the normal way. Because they can't stack like armor penetration or save bonuses with a strong armor save and smokescreen, which is where things got crazy, where you would be like 2 to 3 defensive buffs in on a unit that was already difficult to kill. You can't do that anymore. So now they just like eat damage from everything, essentially. Most like dedicated anti-tank units will do like a tremendous amount of damage to a Redeemer. That said, it means that you have to have those units available to you in the position where they're available in order to actually get value there. And a lot of cases you won't have that necessarily. Yeah. Like, yeah, Hammerhead will kick the shit out of them, for sure. Any like super close range, like Melta squads and stuff will have a tough time because it will shoot them. But if you have long range guns, you'll just like poke them to death for sure. It's difficult to hide them. This is maybe less the case for like Grey Knights that don't have a lot of units that they want to be like projecting forward anyway, but it's tough to hide Land Raiders in aggressive positions and also have space for your other units. So for Space Marines, for example, you can hide like one Land Raider and one other thing. But if you're playing like one of those lists that was like multiple Land Raiders or multiple vehicles, the Land Raider eats so much real estate in the line of sight blocking areas of the deployment zone. It's a lot of times very difficult to hide your other units when you have one. Anyway, let's talk about some Adepta Sororitas chat. This is a faction I'm very interested in because we're kind of like, we're digging really deep with Adepta Sororitas. So kind of like Necrons, Sisters are this faction where we don't really know how they work or how they're supposed to work because their army ability itself is not what's the word? It's not compatible with the current core mechanics of the game. Basically, in previous editions, because all attacks were considered to be progressed individually one at a time, you always knew that, like, if I rolled things out one at a time, I could manipulate one of those dice as I went. With Miracle Dice, nowadays, the implication is because all attacks are always pooled into a group, in order to make use of a Miracle Dice offensively on hit or wound rolls, you have to pre-declare it before you roll any of your dice. You don't get to see any of your results before the time that you decide to use Miracle Dice on them. Now, saving throws are made one at a time. So saving throws and damage rolls, you can use essentially as you did previously, where you go one at a time. However, or excuse me, that's not true. Saving throws are made in a group. So saving throws also have the same problem. Damage rolls explicitly are one at a time. So you do get to see how much damage is either going out before you get to decide whether to damage roll. But saving throws is the other big thing where it's like, do I have to pre-declare that I'm going to Miracle Dice a saving throw before I know whether I'm making saves? And the implication right now is no, which means Acts of Faith is not a very good ability. Being able to predetermine things like charge rolls and stuff is very strong. And battle shock checks, so you know that you're going to pass your battle shock checks. But the situations where you could use it to win fights, like to edge out fights by like manipulating dice math, are way less consistent now. Which is a little bit weird. So it is what it is. So with that being said, a lot of Sisters players have moved away from the more Melta heavy styles of play, and into Army of Faith. Now, this is a detachment that we talked about a couple times when the Sisters Codex came out, and then basically never again because nobody ever played it. It lets you do multiple Acts of Faith a turn, which, as we just discussed, is like kind of weird and in some cases not very relevant. However, what it does have are a couple of great stratagems. The first one is Blinding Radiance, which allows you to target a jump pack unit and project a 3-inch aura of -1 to be hit. So if you are engaging in a gunfight with your opponent, your whole army, essentially, you can put like, Celestine into a Zephyrim unit or like jump pack, Canoness into a Zephyrim unit or something. Hide those models so they can't be attacked, and then project a -1 to hit aura into all that stuff. If they don't ignore cover, they're gonna be suffering -2, -1 ballistic scale, and -1 from the stratagem. So your whole gun line is potentially -2 to be hit. That's wild. If your opponent also does that, fortunately for you, you have not Divine Guidance. You have Light of the Emperor, which ignores modifiers to your weapon skill, ballistic skill characteristics, and any roller test made for it, including hit rolls. So I get -2 to be hit on my whole army, essentially. And you, when I want to, I guess essentially in the same way, you get, I ignore it all when I'm targeting you. So you just have this insanely efficient gun line that's just like fucks with the math a little bit in both ways, which is interesting. And so you use that to buff just a bunch of fucking guns. We have Castigators, we have Immolators, we have Exorcists, we have Heavy Bolter Mortifiers, we have, obviously, Paragon Warsuits are still great. The other thing, too, is that like Paragon Warsuits, because they reroll everything, they get to see a lot of where their damage goes in before they choose to reroll, and then they can Miracle Dice in rerolls. So if you know that you need more wounds for something to kill something, you can just like reroll. You can roll and then pick up your dice and be like, all right, I know I have like 5 saves already, but I'm just going to Miracle this last one because I'm rerolling it. You can do that with Paragon Warsuits, which is phenomenal if you have Morven Ball. So yeah, I don't know. It's so different than the weird, like, Sister said this like weird play pattern where you were playing against Sisters was like always this 0-sum game where the Sisters player would like fuck with the dice to the point where like they were doing a bunch of shit and you were just playing 40k, and it was like this playing against this army that was doing like playing a fundamentally different combat system than you were. And they went from that to just being like, I don't know, I'm stacking debuffs and I'm ignoring your debuffs, and I'm just like outmathing you with just infinite heavy bolter shooting. So double jump pack canonesses. One has Clarion of Urgency. And again, I don't know what the fuck these things are. What is Clarion of Urgency? I don't even know what that is. You can up down here. All right, neat. Not attached on either of these. So the canonesses, I think, are where you're going to be generating those aura effects from your stratagems. We have a Morven Vol because she's great. Double Immolator. Looks like those are both taking twin heavy bolters, dude. What a time to be alive we have found ourselves in, where the meta loadout for battle tanks is stacking heavy bolters. We're so back, chat. We are so back. We've got Arcoflagellants, triple Castigator. One of them has a battle cannon, so we have spot removal on ignore cover if we need to without using the stratagem, and then the other two are autocannons because we're just again forcing multi-damage AP1 shooting down your opponent's throat, even if you have like an AP characteristic modifier. So if you're like, I have Armor of Contempt, I'm going to be okay against heavy bolter shooting, they're like, all right, that's cute, the next heavy bolter will activate, and then just dump another like 20 shots into you. We have Dominion squads with flamers, so they're a little bit cheaper, I think, than the regular Dominion squads if you don't take the Melta version, and then they're good Overwatch threats. Plus, they give your Immolator Scout. We have an Exorcist with the Exorcist missile launcher. 2 mortifiers for utility. Mortifiers are also a good place to generate miracle dice from if you need it, because you can throw them out and like engage on objectives and then lose them and generate miracle dice from them. You do that as well with the Dominion squads, but what you do less now is have attached units where you have characters with bodyguards. So previously we saw like a like Palatine sometimes in these Dominion squads. Sometimes you saw Canonesses go alongside the Dominion squads. And because if they're attached into the unit, they no longer count as a separate unit for being destroyed. You don't get extra miracle dice from them. And in fact, they make your initial squad more difficult to kill. So you're not trading as effectively as you were previously. So you're actually disincentivized from attaching characters in Adepta Sororitas, which is super bizarre. But again, their army rule is like non-compatible with the core mechanics of the game now. So, that is what it is. We do have Paragon War Suits, also with heavy bolters. Everything is a heavy bolter. Blam, blam, blam. Plus double Seraphim and a Zephyrim squad. So we have additional access to those aura effects, which is sick. Very interesting because we basically have totally redefined how Sisters work fundamentally as an army. They've always had this capacity to operate as a gunline, but it's never been as good as like actual gunlines. But it turns out when you just totally rewrite the core mechanics so that low AP weapons are good again, all these Sisters units that just absolutely festoon themselves with a filigree of heavy bolters become great. Like a Castigator shooting 9 heavy bolter shots plus 8 autocannon shots. They shoot 17 times in addition to their Hunter Killer missile. That's a lot. That's a ton of AP1 shooting. And ignoring modifiers on all of it, sign me up. Let's go. I think that's really cool. On a level, I think it's neat. With that, chat, I have 2 additional armies that I want to talk about. Also, war suits have Stormbolters, not grenades. I think the Stormbolters were pretty preferred by a lot of people over the grenade launchers for the reason that, and this is really funny, is that like, and nowadays it is relevant, where you get to stack them with your pistol shots. So their Stormbolters, because you already want to get within 12 inches of people, the Stormbolters essentially shoot 5 times. So you're shooting 15 additional attacks with full rerolls. Which is good. I don't know. I mostly saw Stormbolter Paragons, and it's even better now that like light infantry don't get the +1 save against the bolters, and because they're rerolling hits anyway, it's like whatever. But you essentially can like dump all your big shooting into one thing, and then you just get so many little baby shots, you can kill like another 5 model squad or something very consistently. All right, let's talk for a moment after I drink some water because I'm a little hoarse today. Let's talk about some power armored folks. I have a couple of armies I want to talk about left. That includes Deathwatch, Black Templars, and Blood Angels. So we'll talk about all the Space Marine factions, and then we'll round things out, I think, today. Yeah, we gotta hydrate. I'm getting a little, my throat's getting a little sore. Delicious. Delicious. Yummy, yummy. So let's hop over and talk about Deathwatch. So there was an open question of whether like a Black Spear task force would be good in the new edition. Deathwatch did get a bunch of changes. This is where we talked at the very beginning of the live stream about critical precision and how critical precision is currently fucked to the point that it basically just gives all of your attacks precision, I believe, if you were to interpret it as technically as possible. I don't think that's how you should be playing 40k, to be honest. I think you should probably take some time and consider how things probably should work, at least for the first month or 2 of this edition. If you play it rules as written, it gives you literally every attack in your army precision, essentially, which is not ideal. So anyway, they did get massive points hits, right? So like a lot of these units went up in value, and the fact that you're trying to take as many kill teams as possible means that any increase in points cost for these units is pretty problematic. So we'll see. So we have a Gravis Captain with Tone with the Ectoclades, plus an Indomitor kill team. We have a Terminator Chaplain, excuse me. So again, he gets +1 to wound, obviously, in this is Space Marine one, not the Brotherhood one. However, getting Battle Shock, unbattle shocking things is huge now, especially because it can really fuck you really bad if you are Deathwatch, because it prevents you from site-to-site teleporting, and it prevents you from getting mission
Lord
stuff.
Descent Shadowing donated $5 through Super Chat. I am just joining. As an imp guard player, I'm feeling screwed. What should guard be ruining? I am feeling frustrated with the situation with no idea.
What should guard be ruining or running? I would give. I know that like some stuff got stacked on top of each other. I believe that Militarum can play. Is it armored infantry? What the fuck is it called? Whatever, the detachment where you get +1 to wound out of transports. There are some very interesting builds where you can play your like transport stuff together, which I think is cool. I think if you purely also don't forget that like Hellhounds exist as a unit, right? They're good in Overwatch and they strip cover. That's a powerful thing. So you don't care about the -1 to hit, and then you're just shooting, at the same or better as you were previously. I think that there's like lighter vehicles like hippogriffs, and some of the dedicated transports are pretty good. Not armored infantry that's not the one that I was looking. Oh, mechanized assault, excuse me. Mechanized assault I think is pretty good as well, because you can combo it with like Torox primes, which give you reroll hits into shooting as well. So you can use that to get around minus the cover bonus. So if you're fighting enemies in cover, you can like find a way to defeat that. If you combo that with Bridgehead, I know it's like Bridgehead. All the Bridgehead infantry got really expensive, but you can play a lot of those units and trade pretty efficiently with people. That's where I think start with for Astra Militarum, where you move away from taking only the big heavy tanks and more like lighter infantry units that can skirmish better. Yeah, I do think Guard do need some point stuff. I don't disagree with them on upcharging the big, like the 20-man units. I think that the big brick units were like problematic. And if you're one person who's like, I swear by running only mass infantry, fucking combined arms or something, like I don't know how to help you. Like the thing you have to consider is that some factions don't have the math to beat those, and it's like a super negative play experience for the other person. The part that sucks is that Guard survived in 10th edition a lot by just having like slightly increased defensive characteristics, but that don't really matter as much anymore. So if you're like, hey, my Leman Russ just trade better into your vehicles, not because they have like, do they shoot good, but because they're like marginally hard to kill, so that oftentimes you fail to kill me and then I get to shoot you back. Those were great, but the fact that like you shoot worse now and also the tank is tough is easier to kill is not ideal. In my opinion, there's probably a direction that moves towards more of the more elite infantry and the transport mechanics rather than the big tanks, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, Tau points values are like not something to be taken seriously right now. They're comparing literally any faction in the game to Tau points values is nuts. Absolutely nuts. The Star Scythe Battlestar team we were talking about earlier is like is absolutely insane. That would be changed so quickly in any other faction, and Tau is just like, I don't know, I get 90 point vehicle unit, like vehicle infantry sweepers. Like, okay, man, it's basically a Gladiator Reaper for 90 points. Like, you put that in your mind. And you're like, what the fuck? So yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Deathwatch. So we have an Indomitor kill team, a chaplain with a big Terminator squad, which is interesting. Another chaplain with a big Terminator squad, which is also interesting. These guys are cool because you do get a bunch of Thunderhammer Storm Shield guys, so you get a bunch of 4-wound Deathwatch Terminators, but they also shoot pretty well because you're still getting 4 Storm Bolters, 3 Cyclone Missile Launchers because you have the character. Your shooting is appreciable, if not crazy. So you can rampant ingress yourself in, oath something, kill it with 6 Cyclone Missile Launchers, and then move forward and charge and kill something else. So you can 2 for 1, and then force your opponent to deal with all these high save characteristic Deathwatch Terminators, which is cool. We have a combi weapon lieutenant for utility, an intercessor squad, another Indomitor kill team, one invader ATV, one stormspeeder thunderstrike to get +1 to win against vehicles, and one Vanguard veteran squad for additional utility. And that's what's up. I think 1,000 Suns player infiltrated Deathwatch. It definitely feels like that. Also, double chaplain's interesting. So like they hit super hard in melee, right? Because you can get sustained or lethal hits based on your mission tactic at the time. You're also +1 to wounds thanks to the chaplain, and you're devastating thanks to the thunder hammers. So those 6 thunderhammer storm shield guys are punching super duper well, which is cool. You also have multiple. I mean, obviously, this is a characteristic of Deathwatch in general for a lot of their units, but you have multiple allocation groups, so you can kind of fuck with incoming attacks pretty well as well. I know that there's like some contention over whether or not allocation groups can change during an attacking unit activation. I believe that they can. I'm gonna fact check myself out on that today. I think I've been mulling it over, but I talked about it in my video about allocation. Some people told me I was wrong, and I think those people are full of shit. The more that I read about it, I don't think that's actually the intended play pattern at all, which is neat. More Space Marines, chat. We love talking about Space Marines. Talk about some Blood Angels. I'm very interested in Blood Angels because I do think Blood Angels, they got some really interesting like detachment options, and in my opinion, the ability of Blood Angels to deep strike into annoying places and then engage with people is awesome. So we have I guess we pop over here. Legacy of Grace, which is one of the new detachments. It's the Angelic Inheritors kind of detachment. Gives you +1 to advance in charge on Blade Angel's infantry character units, which affects all of your jump pack infantry units. And then you also get to take that with Stormlands Task Force, because Stormlands Task Force for Blood Angels specifically is a 2-point detachment. So we get all these units that can double up on that advance and charge bonus. So they can get +1 to advance and +1 to charge. Their total throw range is increasing by 2. And because they're all infantry, they can use both hidden and go to ground. And they can do so while rapid ingressing. So if you have all these these characters and these captains and stuff, being able to just like drop them into annoying positions and then run at your opponent is really easy. And I don't know if many factions are prepared to stop them from getting into engagement. Now, the downside is that they are going to have to look to those characters to improve their damage quite a bit, because they won't have like the Liberator Assault Group bonus. They have like lethal or sustained for a command point, but Stormlands Task Force otherwise has no buffs to your fight phase damage. It doesn't improve their damage at all. It only improves their threat range. All the Blood Angel players are dooming. I don't understand that. Candidly, I don't get it, chat. You can take for like, what's this Sanguinary Guard squad? Let's look here quick. A Sanguinary Guard squad is 125 points. You can take a 125 point unit. Maybe you attach a character, maybe you don't. Doesn't really matter. It's like a 125 point unit that attacks 1,000,000 times, right? 12 times, hitting on 2s, wounding probably everything on 2s, right? Realistically. And you can, for 1 command point, essentially automatically deliver it to almost anything in your opponent's army. So, like, I take 3 of these. This is like, I'm not even considering any kind of detachment ability whatsoever, right? I can just take 3 of these things. And if I bank 3 command points over, I guess not 3 total command points, 2 command points over 2 battle rounds, I can just be rapid ingressing and then running in and killing a unit and dropping 6 OC on their expansion objective every turn. And that's less than a quarter of my army. And then I just get to do whatever I want with the rest of it. It seems good. It seems good. Also, if you do choose to put characters in these units, they can do all the cool combat shit they got last edition, but better. Where you can, like, put all the Sanguinary Guard into one unit, slingshot your captain or Dante or whatever to a second unit, and you 2-for-1. Assuming your opponent doesn't, like, perfectly screen you. And if they do, you're just, like, dropping Vanguard veterans and shit and killing them. Like, it feels to me like you start a Blood Angels list with, like, 6 units of small units of guys that can deep strike and charge people. And then you just go from there. And then you just rapid ingress them. And you just hit them with stuff. I don't get it, chat. It seems so good. Maybe I'm a silly goose, but that seems very strong. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on. So we got Lamardias with Death Company jump packs. Love it. Seems good. A Librarian plus Sanguinary Priest plus an Assault Intercessor squad. So we get the Sanguinary Priest is an AP bonus, I believe. So we get an AP 2. It's also very difficult to dodge the 5+ Fiona Pain and AP 2. So let's go. They're tough to kill. It's very difficult to dodge the Assault Intercessor's ability where they gain rerolls when you're on an objective. For the reason that, in a lot of cases, you do have to push up to objectives in order to actually do stuff. But also, if you fight in the fight phase and you're not engaging anything, you have to go to an objective if you can. You're not allowed to say, I don't want to consolidate anymore. You have to consolidate, so a lot of times you just passively end up on objectives, and then people just get to hit you. Not to mention the fact that objectives are fucking massive now. So in some cases, if you're in the scrum of it, it's just difficult to engage from not on an objective. So, like, stuff that gets rerolls on objectives are legitimately stronger. We have 2 of those. We have, and then the Librarian's also giving you a 4+ invulnerable save, I should mention, across this whole unit. So that whole unit is +1 AP, 4+ invuln, 5+ feel no pain for what, 280? It's like it's like what a Crusader squad wish they were. And also effectively move 8 advance and charge, right? Because they're +1 to both the advance and the charge roll. We have another Chump Pack Chaplain with another unit of Death Company Marines. Again, units that can rapid ingress and then move literally infinite distance and charge people. Another one of those as well. And then a JPI squad for utility, 1 Ball Predator so we can clear screening units without having to deliver the big guys. A Heavy Flamer Land Speeder for the same reason. Very cool. These guys are also very good for early game secondaries because they're really fast and they can through the air movement and they're really easy to hide. So they can, like, run up on turn 1 and go do stuff, or like move, shoot, move again and go hide in positions. You can also pay a command point to give them assault in this detachment as well. The Ball Predator obviously doesn't need that, but the Land Speeder might. And then we have 2 Suppressor squads, again, for just super duper cheap utility units. Suppressor squads are 75 points. They're 25 points per model, which is expensive. Being able to get heavy is nice. So they can move 3 and still shoot and get +1 to hit. So they can kind of ignore cover sometimes. Like, their guns only hit on 4s naturally, but they're not bad guns, especially at AP1 with the new cover rules. They can give enemies -1 to hit, which you can stack with cover yourself, which is sometimes really cool. And then worst case scenario, they're just like a move 12 dude who can go do objectives. I actually think suppressor strengths are up. The question is, like, whether or not you want that or you pay a couple more points for a melee unit that can engage on your opponent's objectives, because suppressors are not good at fighting. So they don't want to, like, run and charge onto people. However, if you the rest of your army is all jump pack units that are going to be closing the distance with your opponent super fast, you don't need more JPI. What you do need is ways to fuck with your opponent's ability to clear you. So if you're, like, staring down the barrel of a Forge Fiend or something, and you're about to throw 30 jump pack intercessors, or like 30 intercessors into their face, giving that Forge Fiend -1 to hit to drop its damage output by, 20% or so is massive, because it's going to be shooting like 15 times into your army. I'll fact check myself on the consolidation thing, chat, but it is to my knowledge, consolidation. It is to my knowledge required that you consolidate. Oh, I maybe you might be right, chat. I guess is it if you choose to consolidate, you have to go to a position, but I guess you could choose not to. I think I had that wrong. You might be right. I actually think that I've seen that misplayed quite a bit. Eligible fight, remaining combats, blah, blah, blah. Fight. Overrun fights. Players make consolidation moves with all their eligible units they choose to move. Yeah, I guess it just says choose. Yeah. No, you're right, I think. I'm learning something new today. That's good. Thanks for the call out. I have certainly seen that misquoted. So it's good to clear that up. That's sweet. Cool. If you're engaged, you're forced to consolidate. It doesn't seem to be the case. Because you can simply choose not to consolidate with that unit, right? So you are eligible to consolidate if you are if you fulfill the eligible target. But you can choose to not move any of your eligible units, it seems like, right? I don't know if there is a rule here that says that you are required to choose a type of consolidation if you don't want to. Which is interesting. If you choose to, you're forced. Yeah. So I guess I don't know like the order in which you choose. I guess it's like you start with the active player, right? The player whose turn it is resolves all their moves, followed by their opponent. Yeah. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. That's interesting. That's a good call out. So I guess like the part is that it's like weird is it doesn't specify like when you choose to move a unit, but I imagine it would be during your turn to move stuff during consolidation step. Neat. Well, there you go, chat. New edition stuff. That's good to know. I'm gonna choose to consolidate a lot more than I have been. I've definitely hurt myself consolidating into things I shouldn't have, for sure, because I was under the impression that I was required to. But no, you're totally right. It just says choose. Cool. That's good to know. I love that. Sweet. All right. Good stuff. I think I have a couple of more standard Space Marines to talk about, and then we'll be done. We can talk about momentarily some Salamanders using Forgefather Seekers and Librarius Conclave. Forgefather Seekers, we already know, is sweet because it's Chad Salamanders. However, the thing is that the combination between that and Librarius Conclave is absolutely fucking wild. So Librarius Conclave gives you no stratagems. However, it gives you the option of a bunch of different abilities that you choose at the start of the battle round. These can be like +1 AP to range attacks to target things within 1 inch if you are a psychic unit. So as long as you have a librarian in your unit, you can get -1 strength to enemy range attacks. You can allow yourself to ignore ballistic skill, weapon skill, hit roll modifiers, which allows you to ignore cover, which is great. So there's like a lot of these are very good, especially if you are engaging at close range with your opponent, which if we're playing Salamanders, we for sure are, which is super cool. Yeah, it seems if you are playing Codex compliant Marines, this seems for sure like it's going to be the best. I would imagine that this has to be the best combination of effects, right? I would be hard pressed to consider a more synergistic set of effects, which is weird. You wouldn't consider Salamanders to be like the librarian chapter, but I guess that is how things ended up working out. So we have Adrax, a Blade Guard veteran squad, big 10-man Inferno squad with a captain and immolator. What's interesting is that we did this with a captain and not a librarian. So usually It might just be that we didn't have points or something. But typically what you do is you take Fusillade. So you take it on a Librarian, Adepta Sororitas Psyker. It gives you anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5. I guess we might be doing it in a Stern Guard squad. Okay, we are. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. So the reason that we would do that is that you can put this dude into a unit of Infernus Marines. They get anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5, and they doesn't care what you target as long as you shoot at whatever Vulcan Heston points at. So you can do that with a normal captain, doing it the normal way. Immolator gives you +1 shot, so you're shooting 10d6 plus 10 attacks, but you don't get any of this anti-monster, anti-vehicle stuff. For 2 command points, you can give it devastating wounds, but the captain can reduce that by 1, so it's 1 command point, and you shoot whatever Vulcan shoots at. We put a Fusillade on the Librarian. If we choose Pyromancy, the Librarian then gets sustained hits, and you can shoot at your Oath target, so that your Stern Guard veterans gain hit and wound rerolls. So Fusillade gives you anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5. Stern Guard veterans all have devastating wounds. That's their thing if you take their Stern Guard bolt rifles and heavy bolters and stuff. You're rerolling a bunch of hits into sustains, and then all of those are inflicting devastating wounds on 5+ with full rerolls. So you have 2 units that are shooting 1 billion times if they're within 12 inches of their target that can inflict a ton of mortal wounds to them. So 2 of these bricks can potentially do a similar amount of damage. The Infernus Captain unit is, I guess it's like it's 45 shots on average. Rerolling gives you like 13 mortals, I think, is the average. The Stern Guard Veteran Squad, because it wins on 5, should be more. The Stern Guard Veterans themselves shoot 20, plus the heavy bolters would shoot 1 extra. Oh, no, they shoot 30 total. The heavy bolters just do more damage. So you're probably angling for... You should like basically full convert your hits. So you're looking at like 11 bolt rifle mortals and then probably 4-ish heavy bolter mortals. So both of these do about 15 mortal wounds per. And you can do both of those in 1 turn, which is the difference between playing only the Immolator combo. I guess what I don't know is like which version of Vanguard veterans are available. Because I think the Vanguard veteran, the Jump Pack squad is much better for this than the Infernus Marine squad. But I don't know how these guys work. Do they just not get flamers anymore? Oh, this is a different thing. That's a combat patrol unit. No, they do. So you could play this with the Jump Pack captain and the Jump Pack guys, and then you get the benefit there is that you're faster and you get an extra flamer out of it. But you're doing less damage like with your actual damage. But I don't know if that matters so much. Plus, they're good at fighting. So, I don't know. There's a points difference, I guess. 30 points. Maybe a little bit more if the guys are more expensive. But that is interesting. So these guys are like... I guess they can operate better if they're not using the combo. Because their guns are just like strength 6 flamers. Which is pretty good. In a lot of cases, strength 6 flamers is good enough to kill a bunch of people, which is fine. Yeah. Neat. Oops. Excuse me. So, yeah. Then otherwise, we have Vulcan Heston. Vulcan, I think, gets a lot of buff from the new hidden rules because he can hide and project his ability because his ability doesn't require that he shoots anything. It just happens in the shooting phase. So he can be like gone to ground behind a piece of terrain and like poke his little head out and point at a unit to give rerolls against. And then your opponent still can't really kill him very easily. So sometimes you would, in order to activate him multiple times, you would have to stick him with a unit. He is very difficult to kill these days if you do stick him with a unit because of the new allocation rules. Even if you give him like 5 assault intercessors so that he gets wound rerolls, he's probably not dying to an activation and he can still hide himself, but you don't really need it anymore, which is kind of a huge benefit for him as well. Independent characters like that are massive. We have a regular intercessor squad, a Brutalis Dreadnought, which is interesting, I guess. Company heroes. Oh, maybe we're attaching the company heroes. We would have to attach Vulcan to the company heroes. Otherwise, that unit's illegal. I wonder if it just like didn't let it in the app. I wonder if the list builder app is bugged. I actually would not be shocked to see that being the case. So Vulcan was probably with company heroes. So he's in that case extremely difficult to kill because he's -1 to be wounded and will allocate to his invuln save after you chew through whatever it is, 16 wounds of morons before you get there. So he's like, it takes you like 2 rounds to kill this dude, especially because a lot of times once you get to that point, he's also on a 4+ fail no pain as well. Vulcan's legitimately just like an absolute tank. 2 Eradicator squads for some anti-vehicle spot removal, an Incursor squad, 1 Land Raider Redeemer, as well as a pair of Scout squads, which is cool. Yeah, I'm interested in that Brutalis Dreadnought. I wonder if he's just cool. I mean, he has a twin multi-belta, so you can advance and like shoot it, run up to people. Pew-pew. He's also a good counterattack. So when you are dealing with all of these Sternguard veteran and Infernus Marines, right? There's like all these bricks of dudes who are really difficult to engage with. You can have this Brutalis Dreadnought just sitting behind them. So if you do get up and deal with them, the Brutalis Dreadnought's like a relatively efficient melee unit that can kind of close out in the late game. I don't hate it actually. Even though it's not like super fast, it's not going to be an aggressive unit. The infantry is where the aggression comes from, and the Brutalis Dreadnought just cleans up after them. It seems like how I feel like that would work out. Which seems good. Seems very standard, not including the captain. I would be surprised actually if the standard immolator combo didn't end up being part of the typical build. It gives you access to multiple mortal wound bricks at the same time, where you don't necessarily need to like put all of your eggs in one of the baskets. I guess it's also important to note, too, that the Sternguard veteran do give the Librarian rerolls, and he also has a devastating wound weapon. So that unit's probably doing more damage than I initially discussed, because he has another D6 for D3 mortals. D6 shots for D3 mortals. All right. We also have a little bit... Actually, let's close out here... Let's talk momentarily about Black Templars. So Black Templars, we only lost in the finals. So 4-1, running Ironstorm Spearhead plus Living Miracle, which is the Emperor's Champion detachment that supercharges your Emperor's Champion. So over at Thess Tabletop, Black Templars ended up doing pretty well. We had Guiding Omens on the Emperor's Champion, so that's the enhancement that this gives you. It's the one that like gives you a trillion different abilities on the Emperor's Champion. What's interesting about this is like it's a whole detachment point. It only buffs 1 guy, and it costs you. It requires that you spend regular points on the guy too, which is it's a lot. But I don't know, it's pretty good. He does get free heroic intervention. He can make people take D6 mortal wounds and stuff. You can give your unit -3 detection range, so they can like act as a pretty good utility unit as well. You can give him +2 attacks. I don't know. These are all pretty cool. Start a first battle round, select up to 3 of the abilities, and he gets them until the end of the game. Neat. He's going to be in an Assault Intercessor squad, so he can get wound rerolls, and also deal reroll for devastating for the Emperor's Champion himself. We have a Marshal, with Flesh is Weak. So he has a 4+ Feel No Pain, plus a Castellan, plus a Sword Brethren squad. The interesting thing there is that, like, the Sword Brethren don't have invuln saves, which, of course, is annoying for them. So they die very quickly. But that means that the Marshal can tank a lot of additional damage because he's usually taking saves towards the end of the attack sequence, which means he tanks a lot on his invuln, and anything he doesn't tank on his invuln, he can also tank on his Feel No Pain. So like being able to buff stack on characters in attached units actually keeps those characters going for a really long time. So we have 2 of those bricks. The other one just is 4 Sword Brethren without any special abilities. Sword Brethren all with mastercrafted power weapons. We have 2 Tech Marines, one of them with target augury, so we get to pick a vehicle to get lethal hits. We can improve critical those with the Mercy is Weakness if you need to as well. If you target a unit below starting strength, you can get +1 critical hits and then sustained hits, so you can get 5 up critical, lethal, sustain potentially. Pretty good on a Gladiator, which doesn't which you can get reroll hits on as well. I'm not a gladiator, a repulsor executioner. Sorry, Chad. It's been a long stream. I'm flagging a little bit here. We have another Tech Marine with Adept of the Omnissiah to blank incoming damage rolls, a pair of Gladiator Lancers, a trio of Repulsor Executioners. And that's it. That's the whole list. So this feels like so OG. It is playing Purge the Foe, I assume. Yeah, so we're just murdering people. We're not really doing any actions very much. We just have 3 attendant units inside Repulsor Executioners, 2 Tech Marines, and 2 Gladiators. And that's it. We're deploying 7 units if we're not using any strategic reserve stuff. And we're just trundling forward and doing murder. Go get them, boys. Everybody in. The Repulsor Executioners are obviously significantly more expensive than we had them in the past. However, I don't know. Seems not too bad. Being able to dump a bunch of lethal sustain hits on people is probably pretty good. There's also the case that because a lot of these laser destroyers don't have to punch through cover as much anymore, and they do get access to a lot of rerolls, they can consistently deal damage.
Donated $2 Canadian dollars and 79 cents through Super Chat. What are your thoughts on the state of Guard?
All these guard, we gotta get more guard players in chat so they super chat about how their faction's doing. I think guard are certainly struggling right now, but I do think that guard require Militarum probably requires some points help, but I also think they need like a paradigm shift from where they were previously, because I think a lot of the previous archetypes that you kind of like fell back on are going to be less useful. So I think Guard has to do some innovating where they play the smaller units and the infantry and stuff rather than the big vehicles, because the big vehicles seem dramatically worse. I also think that you should play Hellhounds. I think Hellhounds are great, and they help a lot of the ballistic skill issues that Guard have. And as soon as you alleviate the issues with shooting through cover, like the new line of sight rolls are superior for Militarum, because like big tanks have an easier time gaining line of sight to things. And as soon as you can alleviate the issues with like ballistic skill, you don't have to deal with any armor penetration or like many armor penetration modifiers anymore. So the fact that the whole army's AP2 is not that big of a deal. That said, I don't think the list is like triple Rogodorn or whatever anymore. Like double Rogodorn and 3 Lumen Rust or something is like probably dead. You probably take 1 or 2 big tanks, and then the rest of your army is like letter units. Also, the Storm Brethren squads give sustained. Yeah, it is interesting. It's 2 command points to get Mercy as weakness, but it's only and you don't get the improved criticals naturally, because you get the improved criticals if you are a vehicle. But as long as you target something that's below starting strength, so like you just shoot 1 heavy bolter or something at the target and they take some damage, then suddenly you can pay 2C command points and your unit goes insane against them. Just absolutely fucking murders them. Like full rerolls thanks to the Castellan 5-up critical thanks to the Marshal lethal plus sustain, and they just do a little slashing. Beep bloop. Thanks for the super chat though, chat. I appreciate that. Also, you get a floating reroll. Don't forget the floating reroll, which also works in melee. So the Emperor's Champion actually gets 2 floating rerolls, which is actually kind of sick. Even if he's like not doing anything else, you can get reroll 1s and 2 things.
Briong 6931 donated $2 through Super Chat. Is Hellhound Chem Cannon good now?
Is the Hellhound Chem Cannon good? Do they have different costs based on based on their war gear? I actually don't know. Chem Cannon, anti-infantry 2 damage. It might be. I'm gonna level. It very well may be. It's D6 plus 1. What's the Inferno Cannon shoot? 2d6? So Inferno Cannon does half as much damage, but shoots more times. Oh, Ken Cam is only range 12. No, I think the range kills it. Range 18 Flamer is a big deal. Because at range 18 2d6 Flamer, you can make people do a lot of weird shit because you threaten Overwatch on them. Like Overwatch, let's be real, chat. is such a crazy powerful strategy in this edition. It's much more difficult to get use out of, but if you have good torrent Overwatch, your opponent has to like assume that you're just always shooting, right? You just hold the gun up to them for the entire movement phase. It's not like they can be like, oh, I'm going to do this juke and I'm going to charge them with a guy that they can't quite see and they won't be able to Overwatch. No. Just literally everything. So if you have a Hellhound that's like in the middle of the table performing an action, or that had to perform an action or something, anything moving up to contest that objective, your opponent has to play around the Overwatch. Otherwise, they might die. Even if you never use it, they always have to play around it. Because if you ever just like Overwatch and roll an 8 and fuck up their little 5-man utility unit and score like, change the board state by 8 points, they always have to consider that to be the case or to be possible. So I think it's probably the 18-inch range. I think changes the math quite a bit. But this profile is pretty good. AP2 2 damage. If it shot the same number of shots as the Inferno Cannon, I'd be like maybe. I'd be a maybe. But the fact that it's lower range and also lower shot count is like, meh. All right. So that's a little bit of Emperor's, or not Emperor. I almost said Emperor's Children. It's a long day, chat. I'm still sleepy. It's a little bit of Black Templars. Yeah, D6 plus 1 is not that great. Yeah, you're probably getting between 4 and 5 shots, and then like you get one fail, and you kill like 4 guys. Yeah, 3-ish is not ideal. You also you will always get your heavy flamer shot in addition to that if they are giving you both, but it's not not perfect. Although I think you might, if you want these guys to strip cover, you might rock the heavy bolter just in case. I think heavy flamer's good though. You can threaten to strip cover from 33 inches away, which is probably not too bad. That's probably good enough, I imagine.
At last, Criminal 594 donated
more guard
2
players,
Canadian dollars
just a different kind.
79 cents through Super
Thank you for the
Chat.
super chat.
Thoughts on Death Guard this early?
Thoughts on Death Guard? I don't know if I have much to say about Death Guard, to be perfectly honest. I think they seem okay. I think Death Guard is a little bit weird because a lot of their datasheets require, a lot of their units require datasheet abilities that it seems like the app has like deleted by accident. So like, exactly how they work is kind of questionable. I think that there's some interesting play for some of like the more aggro detachments. Like Taliban Summoners seems really cool to me. I don't know if I'm like I'm a weird insane person, but I think that's pretty cool. There is some weird stuff with like Plague Burst Crawlers and indirect fire. I think we talked about how those guys might be sweet, but the requirement to remain stationary is really tough for indirect fire. So I don't know. I think that they're probably fine, but they do feel much less consistent than they did last edition, which I think people are not going to be that excited about. So we'll see. Triple Tallyman with Morty until they fix infinite command point generation. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm windmill slamming a Tallyman anyway because he can hide in your backline. But I don't know about. I wouldn't expect the command point thing to stick around, and I think most events are gonna FAQ around it for sure. So yeah, the strange part is like obviously a lot of their codex, the strength of their codex is built around like Plague Marine like character combos, and I believe that they accidentally deleted all the rules off the data sheets that say that Plague Marines can have two characters attached to them. Which is really awkward, but I don't think is the intention. I think that's just the app being stupid, and you should probably ignore it. Which means that Plague Marines are like okay. Plague Marines being able to like rock up and just like blast people from close range is pretty cool. If you take like one unit or maybe 2 units of 5 in a Rhino or something, the fact you have to close distance is tough. But you can help a little bit with like. You can force your opponent into fighting you with shooting, and then if you have any quicker things like bloat drones or like forward deployed poxwalkers or whatever, and you can get contagion on them, then you can get Death Shroud Terminators in. And Death Shroud Terminators being able to rapid ingress 6 inches away is kind of a huge deal. Those guys do seem actually like legitimately pretty spooky these days. Even, maybe not quite as much as they were previously, but at least the same amount. I just said totally thing that doesn't make sense, but like, not better than they were previously, but at least like the same amount as they were in 10th edition. Yeah, the GW app's fucked, dude. This app is it's not the best app, chat. It's not ideal. I don't know if I like it. I don't like it. I don't know what I'm talking about. I had to find a way, because I was like doing comparisons. I had to find a way to open 2 instances of it so that I could have 2 detachments open at the same time. Because if we're talking about an army, speaking of which, this is Dark Angels. Speaking of 2 detachments together, if you're talking about an army with 2 separate detachments, not being able to talk about them with both detachments open so you can cross-reference is like fucking crazy. And the app has just no way to do that. You just have to cycle through both detachments manually each time you want to go between different abilities, which is incredibly dumb. So I had to jury rig a system to get two versions of it open last night so I could read it for best armies in 40K. Not my favorite thing in the world. Is it possible to mix the Space Marine chapters? It is not. You choose one Space Marine chapter for your army, and that is the Space Marine chapter for your whole army. You cannot take any units from another chapter once you've chosen one chapter keyword. It's important to note, though, that even if you have a chapter key, even if you picked a chapter keyword, all that does is unlock units with that keyword. It doesn't give you that keyword. So if you have things that specify that they only affect things of a specific keyword, they don't cross over between like the vanilla stuff and the chapter stuff. That's important for Space Wolves. Space Wolves have a lot of like internal synergy between Space Wolves only stuff that the other factions don't necessarily have. But if you choose to take any Space Wolf things, you cannot take other chapters at all. All right, let's talk about Dark Angels, chats. So I do have, this was from the Summer Ruin, which I live streamed. I do have one of Kyle's games on my live stream, and I think I have streamed him in last edition, running a very similar build. This man loves Ravenwing, which is like very base and cool. So Ravenwing is interesting because you can stack together multiple Ravenwing style detachments. Unlike many detachment bonuses, which explicitly don't stack because they got the same like detachment tags, they didn't do that with Dark Angels. Dark Angels get to play in the sprinkler and do whatever they want. So we can take Company of Hunters, which gives your entire army fall back and shoot, or advance and shoot, and mounted units advance and fall back and charge. We also take Dark Flight Pursuit, which also gives you some additional bonuses to your Ravenwing flying units, so all of your land speeders. So we have huge bonuses to all of our mounted stuff, and we have huge bonuses to all of our flying stuff. Fortunately, that gives us access to some of the most efficient and high impact, like fast gun platforms in the entire faction. So we're taking Samuel with an Outrider squad, so we can give him +1 damage on the charge. And he has a sustained hits 2 weapon, which is great. And he gives you, if you already have advance and fall back, shoot, and charge, he gives you +1 to advance and charge rolls, I think. So his unit's super fast and he hits pretty hard. We have a duo of Ravenwing command squads with Ravenwing Black Knight squads. So these are giant units of Black Knights. There's a little bit of weirdness with these guys. Last edition, what you would do is you could take saves on your Ancient. So the command squad has an Ancient who's a 4-wound biker. And you could take saves on him, and then the Apothecary every command phase regenerates 1 biker back to the unit, regardless of which biker it is. So you could take saves on your Ancient, and then you can regenerate the Ancient back. If you do that, you have to judge whether or not you take any damage on your Apothecary. If you do take damage on your Apothecary when you take the saves on the Ancient, then the Apothecary takes future saves, and then he dies. So then you lose the ability to regenerate the Ancient. So they're like mechanically a little bit worse. Plus, they have the new melee rules, which is way worse for mounted melee units. These guys are like, I played a game against them the other day. they are dramatically less effective in melee than they were in 10th edition, which is unfortunate. However, their shooting is phenomenal. They're super fast. They do a ton of damage. They have lots of 2 damage shooting. And because they are non-monster vehicle, when they overheat, they only take 1 damage. Previously, they would take 3 and you would lose an entire biker. Now, they just take 1 at a time, which is great. We also have a Phobos captain, just for a little bit of utility. Little guy who can run around and do stuff. He gives you some redeployments as well. We have Lionel Johnson, an infiltrator squad for the back line, plus 1-2 land speeders with multi-melta and Gatling cannon. 2 Landspeeder Vengeances, which are incredibly strong. These guys get that ignore cover baseline, and they have a twin-linked multi-damage blast weapon. The downside is, of course, that they suffer the new overheat rules, which means they take a ton of hazardous damage, but they're kind of a one-and-done thing. You're like threat overloading your opponent with a massive number of land speeders and with bikers, and the assumption is that they can't come back and shoot all of them. They'll probably prioritize the Vengeances, but in doing so, that means you have more bikers and more land speeders left. We have a Thunderstrike to give all these kind of mid-strength attacks plus 1 to wound, and then an Eversore Assassin to mess with all the psychic attacks. And a Dark Shroud to give it all stealth, even when it's out in the open. Which is sick. I think this composition is very good, especially for Dark Angels. It's really fast. You can oftentimes just like hit your opponent top of 1 and do a ton of damage to them. And the Landspeeder Vengeances are maybe one of the most effective anti-heavy infantry units in the game. Certainly one of the most, or anti-armored units, ranged attackers in the game. 135 points for a bunch of twin-linked like multi-damage shooting is awesome. Especially when you get baseline ignore cover from Dark Light Pursuit, which is sweet. And that's it. That's the Dark Angels list, chat. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up the stream here, folks. I do have to hop out momentarily here. So, I think that's going to be it. Thanks for the super chats, everybody. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the metagame. I do think that there's a couple things that are probably overtuned. It looks like Tao's really good. Thousand Suns look kind of borked. The Secretary robot stuff we talked about earlier is insane. But I have hope. And there's also some like core mechanical issues that we need to get resolved. But assuming those get resolved, I think it's going to be a good time. So I for one, I'm excited. So that's what's going on. With that, chat, I'm going to pop off. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. I should be live tomorrow. We'll probably do a little bit of additional discussion about metagame stuff. And yeah, see what's up. I'm going to play some games, get some games posted on my second channel. So stay tuned for that as well. Cheers, everybody.